Once happy times are gone forever, he died fighting the Demon King, only to wake up as his seventh son. Now, the hero who once vowed to slay every demon must wear the mask of a perfect prince, while plotting the destruction of the kingdom he now calls family. Can a fallen hero hide in plain sight long enough to bring down the entire demon race from within? Let's find out. The story began with Alexander, the main character, thinking that a demon king had suddenly appeared in their land. Little by little, the monsters from his army began to invade human settlements and seize lands. At first, he didn't care much. He hoped that he would continue to enjoy a peaceful life with his family in a village that had not yet been touched by terrible disasters. A little earlier in Tankeret, a village in a small state, the protagonist woke up because Clea, his childhood friend, climbed on him and started waking him up. In a sleepy state, he wondered what was going on. There was someone on him. It was hard, but very pleasant. MC opened his eyes and seeing her, jumped back in fear and shouted, "What is she doing here? Did she sneak into his room again?" The girl replied with a smile that his mother had let her in. According to her, she can come at any time. And why is he surprised at all? Such are the privileges of childhood friends. The main character got out of bed and cursed. He wondered what she was doing in his room so early in the morning. Clea explained that her dad had gone to see William. She had seen him hide a jar of honey. Wouldn't he like to sneak in and try some? The protagonist exclaimed in surprise that honey was expensive. Surely nothing would happen to them for this? She answered with a smile that he shouldn't be afraid. Nothing would happen to them. He sighed with a smile and thought that their country was small. And the village where he lived was, you could say, very tiny. His name is Alexander, but most people call him Alec. And Clea constantly gets him into trouble. She is his childhood friend. Her family owns a bakery. Their parents are also old friends and are still very close. That's why they allow them to visit each other at any time. After some time, they snuck into the back room to find honey. Suddenly, Cedric appeared on the threshold and asked how honey tasted to them. They happily replied that the forbidden taste is the sweetest. He grinned and, hitting them on the back of the head, shouted, "Let these thieves go away from here." Running out into the street, MC thought that Cedric was giving a good slap on the back of the head. They had long felt this power. After all, it was not the first time they got into trouble, but at least it was delicious. It was worth it. Clea called out to him and asked if he knew that they say that a decoction of red grass sprouts makes hair fall out. She wants to pour it on the head of the village and check. He asked if she has really gone crazy. The girl noted that he does not want to. The main character with a serious face answered that he does. He thought that such dangerous pranks are always the most fun. Clea happily exclaimed that they are going on a journey in search of the treasured red grass. Their mothers called out to them and said that they were misbehaving together again today. They should be more careful. One of the villagers called out to them and asked where they were going. They had already managed to get some bumps and bruises early in the morning. The protagonist happily replied that they were going to get some red grass. He pointed out that they should be careful not to get some more bumps and bruises later. MC thought that he liked life in the village. Those were calm, fun days surrounded by loving people and good friends. He thought that this time would never end and that he and Clea would always be together. He really believed it. After some time, he returned to the village when it was already dark and thought that it was already late. The sun was setting earlier and earlier every day, which meant that winter was coming soon. He should have gone home already. Suddenly, a scream was heard, which said, "Where did they come from?" The protagonist ran to the sounds and saw how monsters cut off the head of a local resident. After that, he looked in horror at the window of one of the houses and, seeing many corpses, wondered what was going on. They had all been killed. It smelled of smoke. Something had been set on fire. Suddenly, a man ran up to him and asked what he was doing here. They had to get out of here, and quickly. MC asked in horror what was going on. He replied, "Let him listen carefully. It was the army of darkness. Their village had been attacked by the Demon King's monsters. They had already destroyed everything in the west of the village. There were ogres and goblins everywhere. If they ran along this road, they would be able to get out." The protagonist suddenly started running and hysterically wondered if everything had really been destroyed. What kind of nonsense was this? There was a house, and Clea lived nearby. Suddenly, he heard the girl's screams and saw the dead Cedric with a pack of goblins next to him. They grabbed her and began to torture her. The protagonist furiously grabbed the pitchfork and, heading to attack, shouted for them to take their paws off her. Archers immediately started shooting at him, but his mother appeared and took the brunt of the blow. She asked with a smile if he was okay. He cried out that thank God she was alive. The woman grabbed him and started running. MC furiously shouted that Clea was there. Let him in there. They have to help her. Where is she running? No, they can't leave her. Let him go. Mom started apologizing to him. He cried out in horror. Where is his father? Let her not remain silent but answer him. She replied that at least he should survive. Suddenly the demon shouted after them, "Let these pathetic scum run, and let the ruler of their insignificant country know that they are already close and are eagerly awaiting a fight with him." The protagonist, in complete horror, thought that he would kill them. All the orcs, all the goblins, all the dark elves, he would kill everyone who served the darkness. Even if he had to sacrifice everything, he would kill them, no matter how long it took. 20 years later, the protagonist thought that after that night, all he did was train and study to become stronger. And although compared to the best fighters in the country, he is still average, if not worse. The main thing is that he has become braver than before. For example, he managed to tie himself to a dragon with a rope, and despite the cold, he was able to go on a mission with the others. They raid large monster settlements. The captain of their team shouted if he was alive there. He seemed to be holding up. He did not want him to die before they reached the Demon King's castle. Otherwise, they would laugh at them both. The protagonist, with a serious face, shouted that everything was fine. Where are they? He thought that today is the raid on the Demon King's castle. This is the final battle, with humans and magical allies participating. This battle should put an end to the protracted war with the forces of darkness. Several white dragons will fly over the Demon King's castle. Once they get close enough, they will jump off them, fall right on the Demon King, and finally destroy him. However, the chances of survival are slim, so the team consists of volunteers who understand the seriousness of the situation and are ready to take risks. All of them, including him. If his death will put an end to the war and help destroy the Demon King, he is ready to die without hesitation. Suddenly, the dragon exclaimed that he can see the Demon King's castle. Team captain shouted that this is great, let everyone get ready and put all their strength into this battle. MC thought that he had been waiting for this day for a long time. It was time for him to end it. After some time, they landed on a huge castle and began to fight various monsters and demons. The goddess of light began to exterminate all the demons with her magic. The warriors noticed that she had strong magic. They were saved. The girl turned to them and replied that it would not be for long. They needed to hurry to the throne room, otherwise even more guards would arrive here. Suddenly, her head was blown off her shoulders by a powerful attack. They exclaimed in fear that the monsters had called for reinforcements. The protagonist asked in fear, how many of them were there? They needed to kill them all quickly. The captain called out to him and ordered him to go further. Every minute counted, so he should hurry. He asked in bewilderment, but what about them? The man nervously shouted, let him go. That was an order. After some time, the protagonist arrived in the main hall. The Demon King Goldoges, sitting on his throne, remarked that he was surprised that someone had managed to get in here. He excitedly exclaimed that this was the Demon King. Goldoges agreed and stood up from his throne, furiously shouting that he was the king. In an instant, an incredible amount of dark aura began to emanate from him. MC excitedly thought that this was a powerful force, and yet he could not retreat. He had to fight. He shouted with a serious face that he should let his weapon shine with a sacred glow. Let him fight him. After that, a fierce fight began between them. At one point, the Demon King skillfully parried the attack and, knocking the weapon out of his hands, struck with his sword. The protagonist thought in horror that he had done everything he could. Since that day, he trained day and night to finally become a hero. Let everyone from his past just wait for him a little longer. It's so strange, he can already see their faces. It's a strange feeling, as if everything ended wrong somehow. Goldoges dealt a few more blows and, grabbing him by the throat, noted that he had quite a bit of fun with him. For an ordinary person, he is quite strong. His soul looks simply amazing, so he will gladly absorb his powers. In an instant, the protagonist's body was torn apart. He thought that he wondered where he would end up now. He still couldn't avenge everyone. He would personally destroy this leader of the army of darkness with his own hands. Suddenly, in an instant, he found himself in the body of a child. Goldoges smiled and remarked, let everyone look at him. He was just a baby, and already so serious. MC was perplexed, wondering what kind of nonsense he was talking about. It doesn't matter, he can still fight. He tried to grab him, when he suddenly saw his small hand. The servant smiled and said, let him look at his frisky son. They congratulated him. The Demon King remarked that this was wonderful, because this was another heir to the throne. He would call him Gilbagius. After that, he headed for the exit, and the protagonist was perplexed, wondering where he was going. Let him come back right now, because the battle is not over. Suddenly, Placifia picked him up and said that he would definitely become the new Demon King. He thought in horror that this couldn't be happening. How was this even possible? Of all the people in the world, he, the hero who had fought the Demon King himself, had been reborn as his son. It was fate that had given him the power to fulfill his destiny, and he would take advantage of his second chance. This time, he would definitely destroy the Demon King. In the body of a demon, he would destroy their settlements from the inside, and one day, he would finally avenge all the people dear to him and humanity. His name was Alexander. He was a warrior hero. On the day of the battle with the forces of darkness, he had fought the Demon King Goldotus himself, but had been defeated and brutally killed. At least that's what he thought, until he was reborn as the Demon King's son. In truth, he himself hadn't fully understood what had happened to him yet. Sometime later, Sophia, his teacher, was running nervously around the castle, shouting, "Where is he?" It was time for lessons. He needed to study. MC, hiding, thought that he had no time for lessons now. He needed to explore the castle and gather more information about this place. Maybe he could draw a plan later. That way, he could learn more about their weak points. Sophia asked with displeasure, "Where did that brat go?" This really pissed her off. The protagonist thought that now he is the demon prince Gilbagius, and he is now 2 years old. He knew that in their world, magical creatures mature at different rates, but demons seem to grow the fastest of all. Only 2 years have passed since his birth, but judging by how much he has grown, it can be equated to 5 human years. Well, he is even a little envious. When he was a human, he trained for 20 years to become a hero. How much he hates demons. When he was reborn, he could already think normally, but his body was still weak. So day after day, he could mostly only scream and sleep. But finally, his days of helplessness are over. He has finally grown up and can walk on his own. Now he can begin his plan to overthrow the Demon King. But he must be careful and not give himself away unnecessarily. For now, he will try to get as much information as possible from within the castle walls. 4 years have passed since his death, and then 2 years later, he was reborn in the body of the 7th Demon Prince, Gilbagius. Forces of humans and allies are inferior to the army of darkness, but there is still a chance of victory. So, he needs to figure out what he knows so far. It would be nice for him to somehow pass the information on to one of the military units, but in his current situation, this will be problematic. What should he do? He heard that demons fully mature at the age of 15, so he must wait another 13 years. It is still quite a long time, so until he becomes more independent, such a rapid growth of the body will only play into his hands. This way, he will be able to train faster and kill the Demon King. He needs to hold on a little longer. Let the warriors continue to fight the evil spirits. Suddenly, Sophia pounced on him from behind and, grabbing him, said that he had lessons waiting for him. He should not shirk her lessons. MC exclaimed with displeasure that today he wanted to walk around the castle. She replied that he would not have any walks. After some time, they came to the office and he nervously thought that this was an angry devil. Although, she literally belongs to the race of devils. She is a devil of knowledge and made a contract with the mother of Gilbagius, who eventually reached high ranks and eventually became her mentor. She is just a walking encyclopedia. She has accumulated knowledge for so many years. Sophia began to explain that in order to become the king of demons in the future, he needs not only impressive strength, but also a sharp mind. Doesn't he understand this? The protagonist answered with displeasure that he hates studying. He thought that he did not want to be the future king. He wanted to quickly finish off the current one. The girl exclaimed that unlimited knowledge awaited him. To begin with, they would learn to read and write with him, and then they would learn numbers. He irritably shouted that he wanted to go for a walk. Sophia tearfully shouted that young Gilbagius did not want to study at all. Sometime later, the main character's mother, Placifia Rege, the 7th wife of the Demon King, punished him by putting him on the punishment chair where misbehaving children or servants sit. After that, she strictly instructed him to behave as befits a prince. The first prince, Iogius, had already mastered literacy and arithmetic at the age of 3. His mother loves to brag about this at every opportunity. She just chatters and chatters, just non-stop. He must become better than the first prince. He will become the next Demon King. MC thought that he was being told the same thing about inheriting the throne, but one day he would kill their Demon King. Placifia continued with displeasure that he could skip classes if he really didn't want to, but only if he could defeat Sophia. These were her conditions. The girl herself happily asked if she really didn't mind. The woman answered with a smile, as long as there were no serious injuries. And so she thought that a couple of bruises wouldn't hurt him. The protagonist thought with displeasure, is it normal to treat him like that? He is a prince after all. He asked if she was good at fighting. Sophia answered with a smile that she had learned and could easily repeat any combat technique, be it hand-to-hand combat or spear fighting. She also learned methods of raising children. MC thought with displeasure, who does she think she is? She is just an average monster. The girl happily started to attack and shouted that she would teach him a lesson now. He instantly grabbed her and tried to counterattack, but she dodged, and then noted in surprise that she did not think that he would almost be able to hit her. Where did he learn such a stance? The protagonist worriedly wondered that he had been caught. How could a 2-year-old child know such a thing? He explained that he had once seen training on the training ground. Sophia copied his fighting stance and replied that she could not remember such fighting techniques among demons. He nervously thought that she would easily learn all his fighting techniques that he had been taught in the church. Plasifia said that this was natural. He was a child after all. He could not have learned everything exactly at once. Let her not forget that not everyone can copy techniques just by looking at them. Still, let him try to remember the techniques of demons, and let him fight proudly from now on and fight like his mighty ancestors. Now let them continue. Sophia happily agreed and began to attack. MC thought excitedly that one of them must have seen people fight or fought with them. It would be too risky to fight in front of them. Besides, she would eventually be able to guess from his movements that this was a human fighting technique. What should he do? What should he do? In the end, the girls simply beat him up, and after a while they were sitting in the office again. Sophia happily noted that she could finally begin their lesson. The protagonist thought discontentedly that it would be bad if he remained an ignoramus in the eyes of others. Besides, he knew how to write and count, so now he would cope with everything in a jiffy. She put a piece of paper on his desk and pointed out that this was his assignment for today. They needed to learn the demonic alphabet. He wondered in complete shock how to read this. Sophia began to explain everything about the demonic alphabet to him very competently and subtly. The protagonist, listening to this, thought that he would never forgive them. On the night when the army of darkness attacked their village, his mother managed to escape to a nearby town. They stayed at a local church, and the ministers agreed to help raise him to be a good person. That night, his mother was wounded by poisonous arrows from dark elves, and soon she died. Later, he was told that he was the only survivor in the entire village. He must crush the army of darkness. With this thought, he decided to become a warrior. He trained diligently without rest until finally he was sent to the sacred church of paladins. On the day of his coming of age, he received sacred armor and again dedicated himself to grueling training from morning until night. Then a letter arrived that his country was destroyed. While he was busy training, forgetting about everything in the world, he lost absolutely everything that he once held dear. He will take back his homeland for the sake of everyone who died on that land. This time he will finish what he started before it is too late. He will kill him. He needs to hurry. After these thoughts, the protagonist suddenly woke up and began to scratch his head. Looking at his hand, he screamed in horror. Why was his head bleeding in the morning? He also smeared all the pillows. Sophia greeted him and, spewing a huge amount of energy, asked with a smile, "Did he notice?" She congratulates him. Now he is in the Horn team. Now it will not be possible to call him a baby. After some time, Plasifia, having learned this, happily noted that this is just wonderful. Could it be that her son, the first demon, already got horns at the age of 5? The protagonist, standing in front of her, thought that he was 5 years old and he already had horns. How quickly 3 years flew by. He finally became a prince that he can be proud of, and about whom the inhabitants of the castle are not ashamed to talk. But he is not a demon, but a human. You can't tell by his appearance, but inside he suffers. It has been 5 years since his reincarnation, and during all this time, he could not even meet the Demon King, let alone kill him. He has little data about the castle, and he has not yet thought out his next steps. It is as if his soul and mind are stuck somewhere and cannot develop further, and outwardly he is becoming more and more like a monster. The beastmen and the demon happily congratulated him. MC thought that perhaps there is one plus in this situation. When he grew horns, he discovered that he can see the inner magic of these creatures. There are demons all over the castle. They are small in themselves, so they do not have much magical power. Although the beastmen are worse. Of course, their physical strength is impressive, but their magic quickly and easily dissipates. He wonders if he can see the strength of people. He was congratulated by a dark elf, and he thanked them. The protagonist thought that the dark elves were about as powerful as demons in their magic. It has long been believed that elves are the guardians of the forests, who worship the spirits of nature and possess powerful magic. However, with the dark elves, everything is different. These elves, unlike ordinary elves, did not worship the forces of nature and were generally hostile. They dragged their people into a long war, and as a result, the dark elves were expelled from the forests. Having left the forest, they lost their longevity, as well as the support of the spirits of nature and magic. In order to regain their lost powers, the dark elves want to destroy all forest elves at all costs and sacrifice their blood to the gods of darkness. That is why they joined the army of darkness, and now, together with demons, they destroy not only elves but also other peaceful peoples. But they are not welcome here either. It may seem as if the demons treat the dark elves with some respect and are happy to support them, but in reality they speak ill of all elves, secretly calling them hornless. Yes, the dark elves are harsh and cruel. They are similar to them in some ways, but still, they do not have horns. Without them, they will remain a pathetic race and will never reach their level. That's how they really think. He is not yet sure what the elves themselves think about this, but it seems that they are jealous when demons get horns. Apparently, for elves, horns are an indicator of great strength. In the army of darkness, no one is distinguished by friendliness. Plasifia said that congratulations are enough. She understands that horns on a 5-year-old demon are a big deal, but really, he should not admire them so much. MC, looking at his new mother, thought that she is strong. Sophia's magical power spreads through her body very smoothly, like water, and flows from the center in different directions. But with her, everything is different. Here, the magic accumulates in the center and looks like a denser clot, like a stone. It seems that she did not become the wife of the Demon King for nothing. Plasifia added that she was also very happy for him. He has grown up, and thanks to the horns, he can now protect himself. She thinks that some changes can be made to the previous rules of his stay in the castle. Now he can walk around all the parts of the castle where he was previously forbidden to look. The protagonist thought that this is great. This is exactly what he has been waiting for so long. He asked again, what does "he can protect himself" mean? She laughed and asked, didn't she tell you? Well, now he will understand everything. Let him fall to his knees. In an instant, under the influence of such a terrifying aura, everyone fell to their knees, except for the protagonist. Plasifia asked if he understood everything now. He agreed, and thought that now, when they tried to influence him with a magical aura, he would have a chance to defend himself. These were such familiar feelings for him. It turns out that all this time she was putting pressure on him with her magical aura. The woman noted that she had no doubt that soon he would gain such power that he would crush all the other princes in this castle. If King Goldogius could see him now. By the way, is he waiting to meet his father? MC agreed with a smile and, leaving the room, thought that it had finally happened. How long he had to wait, but this day had come. Very soon he would destroy him with these hands. But would he really destroy him? He had no plan, no weapon yet, and his hands were somehow weak. A few days later in the office, Sophia apologized for the delay and asked with a smile if he was ready. Well, then they would begin the lesson. The protagonist exclaimed in displeasure, "Why? Can't he meet the Demon King?" She noted that he was very impatient. In order to have an audience with His Majesty, he would have to wait a little longer. He had only recently received his title, and the documents regarding it were still a complete mess. The protagonist thought about how, when he grew horns, he had immediately received the noble title of Esquire. To his surprise, it seemed that all demons became nobles. He was marking time again. The title of Esquire, which he had received, was the lowest in the demon noble hierarchy. He noted that the distinctive feature of this system was that anyone could receive a promotion for their combat merits, regardless of their origin. In the end, the one who reached the top of the pyramid would become the Demon King. Of those who had risen to the position of Archduke, that is, one rank below the king, many would want to take his place, right? The succession system is a bit complicated. Sophia smiled and said that it was not complicated. It was not the blood that was important to become the Demon King, but pure strength. No one from the proud demon race would submit to a weak king, and more importantly, they would not be able to handle the Demon King's spear, which contained the Soul Eater that they had obtained through a deal with a cannibalistic dark god. One of the reasons why the Panhuman Alliance could not turn the tide of the war was because of the Demon King's black magic, the Soul Eater. When someone died in battle with the Demon King would steal their soul and become stronger. In this way, he gradually pushed back the front lines and became a more formidable opponent. MC was shocked to think that this meant that the source of the Demon King's incredible power of the black magic Soul Eater was not the Demon King himself, but his spear. Sophia added that according to legend, the first King Loges created this by sacrificing his own life. It is a unique magical spear. He wondered what would happen if this spear were to break, or if it were lost. She replied that she doubted that anyone in this world could destroy it. And anyway, the Demon King never parts with his spear, so no one would have the opportunity. But if they somehow lost it, if the king ceased to possess such enormous power, most likely, the entire demonic nation would lose order and harmony. The girl looked at his expression and happily asked if he had a thirst for knowledge. This is simply wonderful. Yes, she had a book where it was written in more detail. She took a book out of her body and explained that her body was a library. He thought in surprise that she clearly had problems with her head. Sophia noted that this book was the foundation of their state. This is a book that the first Demon King personally wrote, the chronicle of the construction of the state. However, this is only a copy of the original. MC took it and thought that in his time, they, humans, knew practically nothing about demons. In the most important information war, they were constantly losing to them. If he reads this, will he be able to find out? About the spear of the Demon King, about the secret of the noble's strength. No, about why they decided to conquer humanity in the first place. He opened the book and began to read about how demons were originally just barbarians. Although they are gifted with extraordinary abilities, their race can hardly be called outstanding. The protagonist wondered in surprise, is this a joke? When he was reborn in this body, he realized that all demons have unprecedented pride, but for one of them to insult his own race like that. Sophia, looking at his expression, asked, is he surprised? By modern demon standards? Their first king was a bit of an oddball. He agreed and continued reading that at that time, demons wore nothing but skins. They slept in caves and ate meat that had been scorched by fire. If we were to talk about any activities, then apart from hunting, the only thing they did was fight between tribes for small hunting grounds, which they called Holy Land. MC, studying the book, thought that there lived in the tribe one young demon gifted with extraordinary strength from birth. He grew up in a rocky area surrounded by mountains. His strength grew with each passing day, and he was prophesied to become the new chief of the tribe. He spent his days and nights fighting with his brothers for the right to own hunting grounds. But in the end, he got tired of these battles. He wanted to know more about the world. He tried to find out about life beyond the mountains from his fellow tribesmen, but the others were much more concerned about how much meat they had managed to get that day. If there isn't enough food, they will die of hunger, they said, heading off to battle again. At first, he was simply curious, but then the young demon's desire to explore the outside world only grew stronger. And eventually, he decided to leave his native land. He had to cross the snow-capped mountains, whose slopes were so steep and the winds so strong that not every demon could survive the onslaught of the forces of nature. But in the end, the young demon reached the top and saw green forests and endless lands before him. And many different peoples lived there. Some peoples lived in peace, while others were constantly at odds. He learned to read and write, and then began to get acquainted with the local cultures. He was amazed by the skill of blacksmithing, for which the dwarves were famous, and one day he met an eccentric elf. And from that very day of their meeting, they decided to travel together. Every evening, having received new knowledge, the demon thought about how they, the demons, do nothing but fight with each other for miserable scraps of land. They have no growth, no progress, isn't it terrible? If the rest do not find out what is hidden on the other side of the mountains, then the demons will probably live like cruel savages until they kill each other. It is time for him to end this. Let their lands and their tribe, hidden among the mountains, be illuminated by the rays of science and enlightenment. However, it was not enough to convince only one of his tribe of the benefits of science. He needed to unite all the demonic tribes and settlements, but then opponents of the new ideas could also appear. And he needed colossal power to make them submit. Wanderings in search of this power eventually led the young demon to the desert on the border of states, where he found a portal of darkness. This is a magical gate leading to a dark world where devils lived. There he was greeted with a warm welcome. He was drawn into grueling bloodshed that seemed to have no end. And at some point, the most powerful devil appeared before him, and his name was the Dark God Cannibal. He told the young demon that he was ready to give him a powerful force, thanks to which he would be able to absorb the souls of his enemies. In return, he did not ask for much, just let him watch him live and fight. What would he say to that? The young demon agreed, and leaving the portal of darkness, he returned to his lands, devouring the souls of everyone who stood in his way along the way. Human settlements were destroyed, the lands of the beastmen were captured, the goblins and orcs themselves surrendered and submitted. The elven forests gave themselves over to fire, and even dragons bowed before the power. The demon returned some of the absorbed power to the portal of darkness to the devils and the dark god Cannibal. And so a ruler appeared in their lands. The young demon exclaimed that it was time for them to unite, but they should not underestimate their enemies. Although they are weaker, there are more of them. Let them learn from them and train themselves. And here is a parting word to his successors. Let them leave their doubts. The Force will help them in any deeds. Let them lead the people forward. Demons need a reason to unite. Demons need wars, so let them give them a war. As long as the blood of their enemies flows on the earth, the people are united, and they continue to move forward towards progress and enlightenment. Let them not turn back into barbarians. MC closed the book and thought that he understood everything. That is, the demons unleashed wars with other peoples, only to get rid of internal strife? If this is true, then are these damn demons really satisfied with this arrangement? And for this they destroyed his family and country. For this they all died? What kind of nonsense is this? Sophia asked with a smile. How did he like the book? All the thoughts and ideas of their great first king are collected here. His entire philosophy of life is also here. This is truly an amazing thing. He agreed and noted that everything inside him was churning. This is very fascinating. The protagonist thought that he was not lying. Although inside he was torn apart by rage and anger, reading the chronicle turned out to be very interesting. He continued studying, for several reasons. Firstly, he was not going to sit and wait for him to grow up while the human race and other magical creatures were destroyed by demons. The world of demons is based on the laws described in the chronicle. Moreover, their army is growing and becoming stronger. The resistance forces, on the contrary, attack less and less often from year to year and no longer with such confidence. The allied forces always tried to find out the true intentions of the enemy. They held many meetings and conferences, because despite their strength, the demons did not attack often and very carefully. The thing is that if the war ended too early, the demon kingdom would not have the best of times, because it would have faced a civil war. That's right, if the conventional enemy was destroyed too quickly, there would be no one to fight, and this would cause big problems for the Demon King. And as he understood, over the past 5 years, the demons began to attack even less often. He would not say that they now have plenty of time, but this state of affairs, of course, is to their advantage. Secondly, he should not forget about the portal of darkness. After all, the portal leads to the refuge of the devils, who also fight on the side of the demons and significantly increase the strength of their army. He asked how Sophia ended up here. She answered that she came from the portal of darkness, like everyone else. It is a hole in the dimensions connecting the world of demons and their world. Initially, none of the devils knew where this portal led. It is quite possible that this place was previously called the Portal to Nowhere. They, the demons, cannot enter their world on their own, and therefore they must bind themselves with a contract with someone from the outside. In other words, they, the demons, are their guides to another world. MC, after listening to this, thought that at that moment he understood what he would do next. He needed to do something with the Demon King's spear, and then destroy the portal of darkness. If he could figure out a way to undermine this imaginary unity of the demon race, their world would have a chance to win. But for now, he didn't know how to do it. The hardest task was to find this portal to another world. Only then could he decide what to do with the demons. But still, fate had given him a chance, and he would not miss it. Well, he had studied and understood all the ideas and dreams of the first ruler of the demons. But he would destroy all his hopes. He will bring chaos, sow discord, and then they, the demons, will fall into the abyss of despair and anger and again descend to the level of a wild beast. He will destroy this kingdom to the ground. And when he achieves his goals, maybe he should write his own book too? That sounds good. The title will be The Chronicles of the Seventh Demon Prince. Although he needs to work on the title. After some time, Sophia happily noted that he, like his ancestors, will soon be able to go to the world of devils. As his mentor, she cannot help but be happy for him. The protagonist, perplexed, asked her again what she said. She asked with a smile, did he really not believe it? Let him reason for himself. His horns have already grown, and his magical abilities are good. The first prince, His Highness Iogius, was only 8 years old when he first went to her world and made a deal with the devil. And if he goes to the devil world at the age of 5, it will be a new sensation, and he will be ahead of the other princes again. She is sure that his mother thought about it too. The protagonist thought that it was written all over her face. Sophia added with a smile that she wonders who in the devil world he will decide to make a contract with. She would like to know about it sooner. He thought with displeasure that she is offering him, a former hero, to make deals with the forces of darkness. No way. The contract would only be useful if the devil stepped on his side and helped him overthrow the king and destroy this country. He decided that he could do it anyway, but fate decreed otherwise. Sometime later, in her office, Placifia pointed out that he was going to the devil world. Before meeting the king, he should find a worthy devil and make a contract. MC nervously wondered, are they kidding me? At this time, Adonixis, the devilish god of prohibitions, sitting on the throne in her castle, noticed that she was very bored. So what should she do? After some time, MC thought that in a world immersed in an endless war with the army of darkness led by the Demon King, he, Alexander, was born. He was still a child when he swore revenge on those who destroyed his home and killed his family. Humans and other magical races formed an alliance to fight the army of darkness, and so he joined the army. One day, he challenged the Demon King and entered into a mortal battle where he lost his life. However, his soul returned to this world and he was reborn in a new body. Now he is the son of the Demon King, the 7th Demon Prince Gilbagius. And what should a former human who became a demon do? Start a war against his former comrades? No way. He will be the one who will plunge the demon world into chaos and destroy their kingdom forever. He will overthrow the Demon King. After some time in the Demon Kingdom, on the castle balconies, Placifia, warming up, noted that today was nice weather, and the time was right. It was a great day for flying, wasn't it? The protagonist, standing next to her, thought that several days had passed since that conversation. He needed to go to the portal of darkness and make a contract with the devil. The time was right, the sun was just setting. Would they really fly at night? When demons say early in the morning, they mean late in the evening. After all, humans and demons have very different senses of time. Naturally, over the past 5 years, he had gotten used to it, but at first it was very difficult for him. He remembered how Sophia brought him food at night and said that she brought him breakfast. MC wondered in bewilderment that breakfast for demons is like dinner for humans? What nonsense. In general, it doesn't matter. After all, this is the first time he went outside the royal castle. How great it is here. But the flight to the portal to the devils does not please him at all. Suddenly, Plasifia, looking at the sky, noticed that they had arrived. He looked up and wondered, are these white dragons? Although no, the scales are reddish, these are winged snakes. The dragon landed on the roof of the castle and, bowing his head, invited Madam. The protagonist, seeing this, wondered in surprise, are they really bowing to them? The woman asked that he had never seen dragons before, right? They would fly on them. She was sure that he would like it. He thought that he had relatively recently learned how proud and narcissistic demons are. However, it seemed to him that these qualities were famous not for demons, but specifically dragons. Was he wrong? But it seems that winged snakes are just a convenient means of transport for demons, so those rumors were true. They say that deep underground, in the castle of the Demon King, they have learned to breed dragons. The dragon race has been wary of demons ever since the first ruler nearly destroyed their settlements. However, the first Demon King did not stop at intimidation. He ordered the dragons to protect their future offspring, but did not let them get too close, and so they obeyed. He read that many dragons used to live in these mountains. It was the home of a huge majestic race until the first Demon King took it all for himself. Their homes were captured, their children were stolen, a truly tragic fate. The dragons are afraid and cannot even disobey. This is very sad. Only the dragon race has managed to conquer the air element. Perhaps, if he somehow reminds them of their former pride and pushes them to rebel, he will have new allies. He needs to think of a way to help the cubs, but now he has no ideas. When he returns, he will think about it some more. Suddenly, Razriel came up to them and said, "Just think, the sun is still so high and Plasifia is already on her feet." She noted with a smile that she did not expect to see her. Did she really come to check on them before leaving? The woman answered with displeasure that she knew that she would never just visit her. She came to look at her son, whom she bragged about so much. Who knows, maybe today is the last time they see him, right? MC thought excitedly. So this is how strong she is. She decided to use magic at the first meeting? Who is she? She can allow himself to be rude to his mother, which means that her status is clearly not lower. Surely she is another queen and the mother of the future heir. He needs to answer something so he can change his attitude towards him. Since they are almost equal, what should he do? Razriel folded her fan and noted that he is an ordinary child. She somehow can't believe that he's already going to the demon world at such an age. It must be so hard for her to deal with him. Plasifia replied that her son is very diligent. Since she's asking, is there really someone here who can't even raise children? The woman fiercely approached the protagonist and noted that she hoped that they would return alive. After that, she left and he wondered in bewilderment, what was that? The protagonist asked who she was. Plasifia replied that she was the mother of the first prince of Iogius. Let him not pay attention, she's just a dull lady who has to be first in everything and everywhere. MC thought that she spoke as if she wasn't the same. He asked, did she come to stop him from flying away? The woman agreed and added that she probably decided that she could intimidate him. The devil world is arranged differently than theirs. They have much more connected with the power of spirit. Accordingly, the magical power can change greatly. If he steps into the portal with fear in his soul, then he risks wandering there forever, never finding the way home. It was a very low act on her part. He is her son after all. And that means he is not some kind of weakling. And let him remember, such actions only show how weak and scared his opponent is, and how strong he is in spirit. Did he understand everything? Plasifia looked at him with a furious look and thought that he was their future ruler. This child is her creation, she will certainly raise a king out of him. MC agreed and thought that he did not even know what could happen in the demon world. What if it happens in their world that his true nature manifests itself? He has so many questions, but he will overcome all the difficulties on the way to meeting and fighting the Demon King. The woman put him on the dragon and noted that it was time for them to leave. They had stayed here too long. He said excitedly that he wanted to fly behind. Plasifia ordered the dragon to fly to the portal of darkness, and they instantly took off. The protagonist nervously thought that the dragon did not smell so sharp from far away. Already in the air, she noted with a smile that here they were in the sky. Did he like his first flight? He agreed discontentedly and wondered if it was possible to do without these pleasantries. And let her stop petting him. He is a grown man, he is 30 years old. And still, this does not compare to past flights. The protagonist remembered how the white dragon said that they could fly on his back, but they would not stoop so low as to wear these saddles. At the present time, he thought that, however, that time he flew much higher than now. He wondered if flying lizards were better at this. The white dragons didn't carry them so skillfully. He seemed to be deep in thought. He needed to focus on something important. MC noted that he thought they would shake a lot, but the dragons were flying so carefully. Plasifia began to stroke him happily and said that he was very calm. From the outside, you can't tell that this is his first flight. She expected nothing less from her son. He thought irritably, let her stop stroking him. The protagonist looked down and thought that these round roofs and wooden houses, beastmen used to live here. Now there are many people here, but they are all slaves. All these lands have turned into demon possessions. Many races still live here, but only demons live here in luxury, especially the royal family, but demons are not particularly visible here. They have captured and destroyed so many lands, but they simply cannot maintain decent conditions everywhere. After some time, they flew to the right place. Plasifia called out to him and said that it was time for them to go. The portal of darkness was located in the square not far from here. The protagonist asked in surprise, the portal was right in the city? By the way, what kind of city is this anyway? She answered that this city is usually called Cosmology. It is a city created for the sake of demons and devils, and the demons, whose relative passed through the portal, are waiting for him here. Here, the devils who have just arrived in this world can get used to the new conditions. Well, that's it, they came to the portal of darkness. MC, seeing a huge black ball in front of him, thought that it was a gap, as if someone spilled ink in the center of a picture, as if the creator missed one place while creating the world. This is not how he imagined the portal. What is this unnatural feeling? Plasifia pointed out that the world of devils was waiting on the other side. He confidently walked to the side and said that it was time for them to go. She noted that she would not go with him. Or rather, she could not go. Her soul has spent too much time interacting with devils. If she goes through that portal again, she won't be able to return. Sophia was serious when she warned her, so all she can do is wait here for him to return. But this is his first time in the devil world, so... The protagonist interrupted her and replied that he understood everything. Plasifia called out to him excitedly and thought that even she was worried the first time. She remarked that it was amazing that he could remain so calm. There are those who first have to make a contract with a simple devil, and there are those who can sign an eternal contract with an archdevil for the first time. But let him be sure that when he gets to the other side, he will not need to look for anyone. In any case, he will meet the one he needs most. MC agreed and, entering the portal and finding himself in pitch darkness, thought that for some reason he felt dizzy, as if he drank something strong. And he is Alexander? No, he is Gilbagius, and now he is in the portal of darkness. After some time, the protagonist found himself in a dark forest, and looking at the sky, thought that the sun was burning in the blood-red sky, black as pitch. Black light cannot illuminate in any way, and yet, it is light around. Or is it dark here? This is a forest, right? He does not understand anything at all. Everything he sees around is simple and clear, but as soon as he tries to focus on something, he stops understanding anything. For some reason, he feels very small. He is very lonely here. Suddenly, Odigos, the devil guide, greeted him. The protagonist happily thought that this was strange. He did not even notice how he ended up behind him. He greeted him and asked who he had the honor of talking to. The guide, taking off his hat, replied that he was glad to meet him. He is the one who shows the way. He happily noted that he is very kind. MC wanted to give his real name, but stopped himself in time and added that his name was Gilbagius. He was the prince of demons. He thought nervously that he almost gave himself a different name. He had relaxed too much. He needed to control himself. Was he the devil he needed? He couldn't scan him. No matter how hard he tried to estimate his strength, he couldn't get any information. When he was in complete darkness, there was only one way to assess the situation: to make a sound and listen to how it reflected off the objects around him. And if we continue with this analogy, now he had the feeling that there was a continuous cacophony on all sides. The air, the trees, every stone on the ground, everything here had so much mana, and only his magic he couldn't measure. Odigos noted that this was unexpected. It seemed that this time they had a very rare guest. However, whoever he was, his duty was to guide all the guests to where they were supposed to go. Of course, he would show him the way too. Let him see the direction that suits him perfectly. After that, the guide fell with his head to the side, and then stood up and noted that he should go there. MC, watching this, wondered in bewilderment. Was he pointing the way like this? He asked if he was sure that he needed to go there. Odigos answered that he was a demon guide. There could be no mistake. His path lay far beyond the horizon, there where the black sun rises, to the west. The protagonist asked what devil was waiting for him there. He answered that he did not know. What devil he would meet, what he would offer him, what awaited him on the way. He could not say this, because predictions are not in his competence. The protagonist sighed, and, agreeing and thanking him, wondered, was he definitely going there? There were no other ideas in any case. He turned around and began to walk in the direction that the guide pointed him. Odigos, watching this, noted that if he continued like this, the journey could take several hundred years. Where does he want to go? He must go thinking about it. Well, he wishes him a good journey. MC thought that he had already decided on his goal a long time ago. His goal is to defeat the Demon King and destroy their states, and for this he needs power. Colossal power to make them submit like the first Demon King. Stop. He accelerates and the landscape around him changes. Mountains and rivers flash before him, overcoming valleys and waterfalls, deserts and seas. He goes to the west, where the history of the demon world began. There, where the black sun rises. After some time, he reached an old palace, in which the gates were open. The protagonist wondered in bewilderment. Was he being invited in? The old palace was built of stone, but it was already crumbling. He did not feel anyone's presence. He went inside and, studying the area, wondered, what kind of obelisks are these? They look like graves. MC opened the doors, entered a large hall, and tried to open the doors again, but again entered a large hall and did this several times. He shouted furiously, how many thousands of times will this happen? Let them stop quickly. Suddenly, the protagonist opened the door again and, entering another room, was very happy. Adonixis, seeing him, asked if they really had guests. He, looking at her, wondered if she was a girl. Obviously, she was too young to be a girl, but even for a girl she was too developed. As he thought, he was not allowed to measure her strength. So this is a demon that suits him perfectly? She wondered what a human was doing here. The protagonist asked with a smile, what was she talking about? Adonixis laughed and, covering the entire room with her powerful aura, noted that everything was obvious at first glance. She created a mirror next to him and pointed out that he should take a look for himself. MC looked there in fear and, seeing his true reflection, thought that it was him. He had no doubt that he was Alexander. She asked who he was. Let him tell her his name. He began to run away in fear, when he suddenly noticed that the door had disappeared. Adonixis mockingly flew up to him and asked if he really thought that he could run away. Since he was keeping silent, they would do so. She forbade him to remain silent, and he began to tell that his name was Alexander. He was a human hero. The protagonist thought in horror. Was he an idiot? Couldn't he keep his mouth shut? He continued to tell that he was now a demon prince. After his death at the hands of the king, he was reborn as his son. The protagonist, in complete horror, began to gnaw his hands and thought that he needed to stop. Adonixis noted with a smile that she had never seen such an irony of fate. Since he was killed by the Demon King, he must have fallen under the cannibal curse. However, it was unable to completely destroy his soul. He is a very stubborn guy. After all, there are exceptions among people. So what brought him to her? After seeing his actions, she forbade him to harm himself. MC told her in horror that he had grown horns and was told that it was time for him to go to the demon world. He came to her for power. He wanted to use his new position to defeat the Demon King, but he needed power, so he came to her. Adonixis asked with a smile, does this mean he wants to start a rebellion? The protagonist thought about what he had endured for 5 years. He ate food from the hands of those who killed his mother. He lived surrounded by enemies who destroyed his homeland. He thought that if he continued to hide, he would be able to defeat them someday. He thought that he had everything ahead of him. Was all this effort really for the sake of being discovered by some demon? He asked her in fear who she was. Adonixis sat on the throne with a smile and introduced herself, saying that she was the dark god of taboos. The protagonist remembered how Sophia had said that humanity saw this as a disaster, while the demons extolled the path chosen by the first demon lord as a great feat, and the one who had made significant progress in this direction was the predatory archdemon. Without a doubt, he had made a contract with the cannibal. He wondered if the demon gods were relatives of ordinary demons or their bosses. She exclaimed furiously, what kind of disrespect was this? What kind of nonsense was this? They, the demons, were not even close to them. Let him never say that again. Did he understand her? The demon gods were terrifying creatures who had reached unimaginable heights in demon magic. Not only did they have enormous power, but they also had unparalleled authority among the demons. They are the pinnacle of demon evolution, and the absolute rulers of the entire demon world. MC was now horrified, wondering if that meant she was too? This was bad. The wrath of such creatures must be far more terrifying than that of demons. Did she really understand everything from the start? Adonixis asked with a sly smile what she should do with him. The former hero of humanity, thirsting for death, became the prince of demons, pretending not to know his past. What could be more interesting than that? Maybe she should hand him over to be torn apart by her subordinates? He began to beg her in horror not to do this. After that, the protagonist wondered what he should do. How could he get out of this situation? He had to think of something. The girl continued that, however, according to the contract with the cannibal, they were obliged to help the demon race in any way they could. He noted in bewilderment that she was an archdemon. Why would she obey some demons, being the ruler of the demon world? She asked furiously, how dare he say such a thing? She was only following the contract. If anyone needed power, it was the demon race. However, thanks to their power, the demon world had become much richer than before. After all, it was the duty of the ruler to take care of their territories. MC wondered, was she bored? He could tell even in such a short period of time, she was slowly withering away in this boring palace. He asked with a smile, what if he said that there was something more interesting than being torn apart by demons? Adonixis asked in confusion. Did he really want to make a contract with her? The protagonist asked, then who was worthy of making a contract with her? She answered with a smile. The one who breaks the taboos was worthy. And not just any prohibitions, but ones for which one can part with one's life. The protagonist noted with incredible confidence that in this case there is no one in the world more worthy than him. He, as a hero, is the one who protects humanity and fights the creatures of darkness. However, in order to consolidate his status as a demon prince, he decided to abandon defenseless people. He uses their heads as steps and ignores their pleas for help. He kills with his own hands those whom he is supposed to protect, thereby breaking a taboo. He always thought about this and knew that he could not hide from the truth. At the same time, he is a demon prince. He is the one who must inherit the will of the king and devote himself to the country, and yet he will bring devastation to it. He uses the loyalty of his servants to betray not only his brothers and sisters, but also his father and mother. He will become the complete opposite of someone who should be called a prince, thereby breaking another taboo. It was so stupid, saying all this out loud. He realized that over these 5 years he had developed feelings for them. For Sophia, who looks after him, for Plasifia, who expects so much from him. But despite this, he will make their lives hell. He has broken all the taboos, both as a hero of humanity and as a prince of demons. Is there anyone more worthy of him? Adonixis answered that she admits that she has never met a being like him. But this is not enough to impress an archdemon. Such actions are not enough to prove his worth. There are 2 ways to make a contract with a demon. You need to persuade him to give you his magical energy directly, or make him work for you. She warns that she is not as merciful as a cannibal. She does not need his pathetic mana, not to mention his broken soul. It is in his interests to offer her something more attractive and exciting, a price worthy of the archdemon's attention. MC said with a serious face that he would destroy the dark portal. He didn't know how exactly he would do it, but he would definitely do it to deprive the demons of their powers. That was why he needed her power. Adonixis turned her head away in confusion and asked, what kind of nonsense was this? He immediately grabbed her shoulders and exclaimed seriously, let her just imagine. As one of the lords of the demon world, she would deprive this world of all its riches, tarnishing her honor and dignity. She would deprive the demons of their home and impose endless suffering on them. Now he would grant her a chance to break this taboo. The archdemon began to protest. Let him not talk nonsense. Destroy the dark portal with her power? Doesn't he understand that this will turn the demon world into a real hell? And how can she, an archdemon, resist her contract? She exclaimed that she will not make her charges suffer. The protagonist squeezed her shoulders tighter and tighter and shook her. Adonixis continued, if she did this, then her status would fall below that of a pathetic worm. The protagonist let go of the archdemon in amazement and thought that she was crazy. She leaned back in the chair. He clarified with her, so does that mean she agrees? The archdemon began to shiver after using magic. She answered him in a stuttering voice that she agrees. He proved to her that he was worthy of making a contract with her. In that case, she would not hand him over to the demons. It would be a shame if he died before he could put his plan into action. The protagonist let out a sigh of relief and thought it had worked out somehow. She continued that she was surprised by his recklessness. His soul was torn to shreds, and he himself was reborn. However, somehow, he did not forget his hatred for demons. He did not have memories of his past life, did he? The protagonist wondered, what was she talking about? Of course he did. The archdemon bombarded him with questions. Where was he born? Does he remember the name of his home village? The protagonist answered her, of course he remembers it. She continued, does he remember the names of his parents, his best friend? MC thought, name, and finally said Clea. Adonixis asked him, what was the name of his mentor? He remembered that there were many people who taught him in the past. The abbess of the orphanage, the master of the monastic order, the mentor of the holy church. Out loud he said, Instructor Meralda. He could no longer remember anything, as if his memories had been eaten. And yes, eaten. The protagonist seemed to split in two from the realization of this. The archdemon noted that this is what she meant when she said that his soul was torn to shreds. The cannibal absorbed him with his insidious magic, but seeing his heart burning with unstoppable vengeance, he decided to spare him. Yes, spare him. Not only would he not be able to get his memories back, but he would also have to live as a demon. The protagonist thought about it. She asked him, would he refuse the contract with her? Although, even if he refused, she would not reveal his true identity to anyone. He had greatly amused her. He still had a chance to return to the life of a demon. The protagonist answered her in a choked voice that he remembered. He remembered the anger that boiled inside him when his village burned down, as well as his oath to take revenge on those responsible for what happened. That was more than enough. The archdemon said, that's how, and flew up to him. She said, then they will make a contract with him, and extended her hand to him. The protagonist wanted to respond with a firm handshake, but suddenly pulled his hand back. He told her to wait a little. He needed to clarify something. She was granted the right to gain power by breaking the ban, right? She told him that this was one of the options, but that was not all. The archdemon said irritably, perhaps she should explain everything to him. She is the devil god of taboos, whether in the devil world or in the real world. Her power increases when taboos are broken. The more often taboos are broken, the stronger her contractor will become. And when he gets used to her power, it will be possible to create new taboos. For this, he should be grateful to her. The protagonist asked her again in surprise, new taboos? She told him that he understood everything correctly. Adidixis demonstrated to him how it works. She forbade him to blink, and he realized that no matter how hard he tried, he could not close his eyes. The archdemon continued, this is similar to how she made him talk a little earlier. In other words, it is a magic that restricts or forces an action. MC thought, in admiration, that it is powerful, although it can be resisted depending on the strength of the enemy's magic. To do this, it is necessary to direct all your consciousness to resistance. It is a powerful spell that can be cast without complex chants and rituals. It's ridiculously strong. The protagonist felt an incredible burning sensation in his eyes and told her that his eyes were drying out. Let her stop this already. She smirked. Is he already at his limit? Wow, what a pity. But the more he wants her to stop, the more she doesn't want to do this. Looking at him, the archdemon began to mock him. What to do? Wow, how sad. The protagonist exclaimed irritably, stop torturing him already. She said no, let him wait a little longer. His eyes isn't that bad. By the way, her prohibition also applies. Adonixis forbade him to breathe. The protagonist exclaimed if he tried something like that, they would both die, a dead end. She said, of course, she's the devil's god of prohibitions, understand him? She is connected to the taboo even more strongly than anyone else. Therefore, his offer seemed very tempting to her. He asked her in surprise, that is, she's not capable of breaking the ban herself? The archdemon answered him, for now it is possible to say so. She sighed and noted, did he want to clarify anything else? If not, then they will proceed to the conclusion of the contract. The protagonist said that now he agreed. He understood, although they spoke on more favorable terms than before, but she is still a devil god. He did not know whether her mood changes on a whim or not. He must receive her power before she changes her mind, and then he will return back. The protagonist extended his hand to her. The archdemon said that first, she needs to make sure of something. How much of his vessel should be filled with her power? The protagonist assumed, the more, the better, right? She agreed with him, noting that she asked him about it just in case. Clasping their hands in a handshake, the archdemon said, in the name of the devil god, she gives power to the hero Alexander. The protagonist responded by saying, in his hero's name, he dedicates the ban to the devil god Adondexis. The archdemon said, the contract is concluded. Suddenly, the protagonist began to shake so much that he felt sick. He wanted to pull his hand out of the handshake. The devil laughed and exclaimed that it was too late. He was pierced as if by lightning. Black energy began to swirl around him. He felt like a muddy stream in which all the rotten principles of this world are contained. Something disgusting burst into him and rebuilt him from the inside. The archdemon said, his soul has completely dried up. It seems this vessel can withstand more than expected. Let him rejoice. He is the only one who has ever received so much power from a devil god. MC shouted back at her that he was drowning. It was as if he was torn away from her. The devil exclaimed, wow, well, even she won't tell who he is now, a human, a demon, or even a devil. The protagonist irritably noted, what is she talking about? He thought that, according to the first sensations, nothing has changed in him. What could this mean? The protagonist approached the mirror. The system showed him the hero of humanity, Alexander. The the main form. From the mirror, an adult strong man in armor looked at him. He had such parameters as demon horns, skin, and eyes of the devil god. The protagonist asked his ally in amazement, "This will not affect his real form, will it?" She answered him, "Perhaps slightly. This is a common thing when someone makes a contract with the devil. This is considered an acceptable error." The protagonist clarified with her, "Is this true?" The archdemon said, "Let him not come to the world of devils anymore. If he gets here again, he will not be able to return to the real world." MC answered her that he understood her. To be honest, he was even glad about it. He was embarrassed by his frank joy and said that he was sorry, but it was time for him to go back. The archdemon also became sad, noting that it was, indeed, a great pity. The protagonist prepared himself for his return with a determined look. Adonixis stood next to him and exclaimed in anticipation how long it had been. How many thousands of years had passed since she last went out into the outside world. She was excited about the upcoming adventure. The protagonist asked her in surprise as he understood she was going with him. The archdemon smiled at him. Wasn't it obvious? He was indignant. Was she mocking him? Didn't the cannibal remain in the devil world? If a devil god like her appeared in the real world, what would happen? She assured him that everything would be just fine. Nothing serious, she would just stick out her fingertips. And that's it. She added that in order to save energy, she had prepared a place for herself to spend the night in advance. The archdemon put her hand on his chest and said that this is the place. The protagonist didn't even have time to understand anything, as she penetrated inside him, and already from his womb she noticed that it was just gorgeous. MC exclaimed indignantly, "Where is everything gorgeous?" He couldn't believe it. It just couldn't be. Will she follow him everywhere now? The protagonist shouted at her not to joke like that. She should get out of him. The devil just laughed at him in response. The protagonist had no choice but to put up with it. After some time on the way, a black gaping opening appeared in front of him. He noticed that they had reached the portal of darkness from the side of the devil world. The protagonist grumbled. The way back turned out to be very long. And then everything was simpler. The devil was surprised. Seriously? According to her, it didn't take them that long to get there. The protagonist looked at her and sighing, said that they were going back. He warned her that as soon as they got there, they would meet Placifia. She is the mother of his new body. A contract with a devil god must be kept secret, otherwise it will be bad. The archdemon remarked. She was pleased by his cleverness. Who knows what trouble will happen if the contents of the contract are revealed? She added, fortunately he has two names. If he uses the non-contract name Alexander when calling on her power, the effect will be weakened. In other words, it will seem like he made a contract with an ordinary devil. The protagonist thought he said his name without thinking beforehand. But he understood her thought. MC said, in that case, instead of the devil god of prohibitions, they will say that he made a contract with Andi, the devil of restrictions. The archdemon was outraged to the depths of her soul. She is a devil god. Just think, they are going to humiliate her with the name of a small devil. On his part, this is real blasphemy. The protagonist was indignant. Let her not dare to behave like that in front of Placifia. Did she understand him? Suddenly, MC exclaimed in bewilderment. What was going on? His strength had just increased. Having broken the taboo of humiliating the devil god, Alexander had become much stronger. The protagonist called on the devil to go forward. Was she ready for this event? The archdemon exclaimed that she was ready. She could not wait to see him in his demonic role. Holding hands, they stepped into the portal. The archdemon said goodbye to the world of devils. She added that she would leave it for a while. The city spread out before the protagonist's eyes. He squinted from the bright light and thought, that's right, this is the color of the sun. Since quite a while had passed, he felt a little strange. His mind and body felt a little cramped. The devil also straightened her body, stretching with pleasure. The protagonist suggested that she look for Placiphius. Entering one of the establishments, he saw his mother in this world sitting dejectedly at the table. He noted that she looked very upset. MC turned to her and told her that he had returned. Placiphius looked at him from under her brows and asked him in a muffled voice, who was he? The protagonist thought in surprise, no, who was she? She just looked incredibly exhausted. He addressed her as a mother and told her that it was he, her son. The woman said in surprise, is it him, her Gilbadius? She could not believe her eyes. His mother asked him what the name of his mentor was. The protagonist answered her that his teacher's name was Sophia. His mother asked him again, who did he fight with the first time? The protagonist noted, and so he fought with Sophia. Placifia approached him. She asked him another question. What was the reason for that fight? MC said, because he did not study. In his mind, he thought that she was too close to him. But suddenly he realized his mother became smaller, her angle became somehow strange. The woman grabbed him by the shoulders, and not believing her eyes asked him, is it really him? Is this her beloved son Gilbagius? The protagonist saw his reflection in the window and could not contain his emotions. Wow, how he grew! The mother, meanwhile, frantically kissed his hands, and in joyful amazement exclaimed, "It really is him. What a relief, her boy was found." The protagonist noted, "His mother is giving away." The archdemon, watching the picture of the reunion of the mother and son, agreed with him. She added that everything is within the permissible error. The protagonist objected to her. It is definitely not within it. This is what he learned on the way to the inn. He had only been in the devil world for a few days, but in the real world, half a year had already passed. Usually, a demon returns after a few hours, or at the latest, after a few days. At first, Plasifia was calm, but over time she began to worry. Then the mothers of the other princes learned of this story, and they paid her visits one by one. It was clear that their sympathy was insincere, which further aggravated the mother's condition. One, as if laughing, asked her if her son had not returned yet. The second, not without mockery, noted that she would like Plasifia's son to return alive. Razriel came back again and laughed. The younger one left and didn't come back. Hilarious. Therefore, it is not surprising that she developed a mental disorder. She lost the desire to eat, sleep at night, and in the castle of the Demon King, she did not find a place for herself. And so, waiting and begging for the protagonist's return, half a year passed. It is not surprising that now the mother was shedding tears of happiness and kissing his hands, every now and then saying his name. That is how they got to the inn, and there the archdemon was waiting for them. It looked like a scene where a son brings home a bad girl as his girlfriend. The protagonist hastily changed his clothes in the style of a savage and turned to his mother. He introduced her to his girlfriend, calling her by her name, Ande, and added that she is a devil of restrictions. He made a contract with her. The archdemon grimaced with her, such a great one. They treated her like an insignificant devil. The mother thoughtfully said, "So she is his contract devil." She has already noticed that his magical power has really become stronger than before. The mother asked him, "Is his ally a rank of a higher devil?" "It's just that she looks quite unique." The protagonist looked at his girlfriend and answered his mother, "She really is a top-ranked devil." He said in his mind, "She is not just a top-ranked devil, she is a god." Plasifia asked him what powers she has. MC said he cannot go into details due to restrictions. The woman reasonably noted, since his ally is able to impose a restriction on him, it must be binding-type magic. This is a great achievement for him, who first entered the devil world. Her son is great. But the next time he visits the devil world, let him just find someone who will be next to him. He made her worry about him. The protagonist carelessly told her that he is fine. For him, it seems, the devil world is no longer available. The mother asked him in bewilderment, "What did he say?" The protagonist said that his vessel is already overflowing due to the contract, so next time, he simply will not be able to return. Plasifia pounced on the archdemon like a tigress. What had she done? The devil innocently asked her what had happened. Was something wrong? The woman became even more incensed, but let her not tell her that she did not understand the seriousness of the situation. Because of her, her son would no longer be able to make contracts with other devils. He would no longer be able to recruit new subordinates through contracts and would be forced to rely only on her power. The archdemon remarked in surprise, "Shouldn't it be like that? It is too difficult for a mortal to handle several powers at once. Besides, if he puts his hand to several contracts, it will only dilute the purity of his powers. He will never succeed like that. And in the end, it will just be a pitiful sight." Plasifia was deep in thought, and the protagonist was covered in sweat, fearing that his mother would guess everything. Finally, the woman said, "This is bad. The word pitiful is the one that triggers the demonic race the most. The only ones allowed to use these words are the powerful, who have achieved success themselves." The archdemon challenged her. Did she want to test her? Plasifia pulled out her weapon and prepared to attack. The devil used a ban on the use of the spear. The protagonist's mother realized that the spear was not moving. Adonixus forbade her to resist. At that moment, the woman was encircled by forged chains binding her and her weapon. The protagonist's mother tried to break free, but she failed. The devil was triumphant. Was that all she could do? Plasifia used her magic power, broke the chains, and launched the spear at her rival so quickly that MC and the devil widened their eyes in surprise. The spear pierced the back of the sofa between them. This surprised the devil god. She looked closely at the spear. The protagonist noted that she did not say forbidden, but not allowed. In other words, here it is, an imitation of the power of a top-ranking devil. His mother was surprised to notice that she acknowledged the strength of her son's ally. The devil answered her, of course it was. She could consider herself to have made a good deal. She would make her son a great demon king. Plasifia looked closely at the archdemon and told the protagonist it seemed he had acquired a great devil. He answered her that it was not easy. Mother said, "Okay, it's time for them to go back." They needed to return to the Demon King's castle as soon as possible. The protagonist was surprised. Right now? The woman noted. She thought he should rest. Contact with him had been lost for half a year. He would soon be officially declared dead. The protagonist asked in confusion what she said. She repeated that if they did not return soon, they would be in trouble. There was no time to rest. And as a result, she fell asleep. The protagonist, picking up his mother, thought that's why he wanted to rest first. He asked the archdemon if she could hear him. The devil answered him that she could. The protagonist reminded her again before they arrived at the castle. He had made a contract with her to defeat the Demon King, not to become the Demon King. So, let her not be mistaken. Adonixus asked him in confusion, what was he talking about? Was it because of her words at the inn? So, weren't they the same thing? She recited, in pursuit of power, he defeated the Demon King, killed his siblings, and betrayed his mother. When his revenge is complete, he will already be the Demon King, both figuratively and literally. It will happen regardless of whether he wants it or not. The protagonist irritably answered her that he doesn't care at all what will happen to him when he is done with the destruction of the Demon King. He simply doesn't care. After some time, when they arrived at the castle, his mother said that she would report to the king that he had survived and returned. She would give those idiot concubines a hard time. The woman was determined. MC thought that she had recovered well from her sleep, and her fighting spirit had been restored again. When his mother left, he told his ally, who continued to sit peacefully in his stomach, not to dare to come out when he was in the castle. The devil grumbled how she hated it, and why shouldn't she show herself? The protagonist explained to her, if she met other devils in the castle, they might find out that she was a devil god. She asked him in bewilderment, what? And that was the whole reason? He shouldn't worry. The only ones who knew her face were the same gods as her. The protagonist skeptically noted, right? She continued that there were still a few curious souls who dared to enter the residence of the devil god. So they probably knew her face. But in all the years she had lived, there were only a few of them. Even the fingers of one hand would be enough to count them. The protagonist laughed. He thought that everything would be fine. At that moment, the door swung open, and Sophia ran into the room with a loud scream. She heard that he had returned and immediately rushed to him. He greeted his mentor. The girl noted in amazement he had grown so much since their last meeting. This was bad for his ability to remember. And this was just when he finally got down to studying. The protagonist laughed indignantly. They had not seen each other for so long, and she was still talking about the same thing. She asked him what happened to him. Why did he not return for so long? And did he manage to make a contract with the devil? The protagonist hesitated with the answer, and from his insides appeared the devil. MC introduced her to his mentor. Sophia thought she should greet her. The archdemon, exhaling, noted, finally, no more suffering. She wanted to say something else, but at that moment Sophia exclaimed in amazement, the devilish god of prohibitions Adonixus. How is this possible? Why is she here? The protagonist cursed. They were exposed. The archdemon noted that this was strange. She did not remember meeting her anywhere before. Sophia, losing her balance from amazement, fell to the floor prostrate in front of the devil. The archdemon asked her why she recognized her. The mentor answered her. At that time she was just born, so she had yet to know what fear was. Out of curiosity, she snuck into their residence. Let her forgive her for such rudeness. The archdemon exclaimed, is she that little devil? The protagonist asked his ally in surprise, does she know her? The devil said that it was an old story. Then a tiny devil, the size of a pea, invaded her house. She kinda did whatever she wanted back then. For example, she drew on the walls and read her book collection. So she personally showed her what fear was and drove her away. And now that little devil has grown so big, it's so nostalgic. She hugged Sophia and asked him, what should they do now? Should they kill her? The mentor was stunned when she heard the archdemon's question. The protagonist was also surprised. How could he kill her? Considering the risk of information leaking about his contract with the god of taboos, the answer was obvious. He told his ally that they would not kill her. Sophia sighed in relief. The archdemon looked at him in confusion. The protagonist explained his decision to her. If they killed the devil who had made a contract with his mother immediately after his return, everything would go wrong. Besides, Sophia was in charge of his training. He still had a lot to learn, so he couldn't afford to lose her now. Sophia said his name with gratitude. The archdemon noticed. That's how. She understood what he wanted to tell her. The devil turned to the protagonist's mentor and asked her if she could keep her true identity a complete secret. Sophia hesitated with an answer, then honestly admitted to the devil that she couldn't do that. According to the contract, she couldn't keep anything that could harm Lady Placifia's secret. She understood why Gilbagius didn't want the contract with the devil god to be known. After all, this could put the other princes on guard and spark a dispute over the succession. But why hide it from the mistress? She thought she was only assuming that what they really wanted to keep secret was not the true identity of the devil god, but the contents of the contract itself. Moreover, this contract was so great that it even allowed the devil god of taboo himself to come into this world. Therefore, the possibility that the mistress could be harmed was high. The archdemon squeezed her throat tighter. The mentor began to gasp for air. The protagonist thought, so she managed to find out so much from such insignificant clues. It was only expected that she needed to be destroyed. But then, how could he explain this to his mother? He grabbed his head and cursed. Every step was a dead end. The archdemon, noticing his painful thoughts, said that they had no choice. They would have to tell Sophia about their contract. The protagonist called out to her in horror. What was she doing? The archdemon, ignoring him, said Sophia that the protagonist had tempted her with such an offer. He had incited her to break a taboo, big and serious enough even for the ruler of the devil world, for such a devil god as she. After all, Sophia understood what she was talking about now. The mentor thought in bewilderment, a taboo big enough even for her? The archdemon asked her if she liked the devil world. The girl answered her honestly that she did not really like it. Such a deserted place that did not carry any knowledge. The devil asked her if she wanted to die here. Sophia said that she did not want to die. She wanted to gain more knowledge and increase her power. The archdemon asked her again, then does this story have anything to do with that demoness? The girl, lowering her head low, said that it did not. Adonixus stroked her head and told her that she was a very good child. Let her serve her master and her contractor diligently from now on. Did she understand her? Sophia told her that she understood everything. The archdemon said then, they finished with greetings. All that was left was to act according to the plan. The protagonist looked at her in bewilderment. What was she saying? The mentor wanted to burst into tears, but the devil told her not to dare do that. The protagonist irritably turned to his ally. Let her explain to him what happened here. He stopped understanding what was happening halfway through the conversation. The archdemon carelessly told him that nothing special. She only learned that the contents of their contract would harm the devil world. He clarified with her, did she mean the destruction of the dark portal? The ally noted that this was not so. Of course, she did not know such details. Initially, if there was even the slightest chance of harm to the contractor, whatever it was, the devil was obliged to report to him, and there was no loophole in this. And yet, Sophia has stained her hands with taboo. In despair, she abandoned the devil world, with which she had already lost contact, and distorted the contract. After all, it is a taboo to put one's own interests above all else. Although it is better to be alive than dead, but nevertheless, for a devil of knowledge who seeks the truth, all this is quite painful. Her desire to increase her rank is obvious, but the path to it is still far. And her tears flow from the realization of this truth. At that moment, Placiphia flew into the room and called out to the protagonist and Sophia. She told them to get ready, because it was time to bestow magic on Gilbigius. The protagonist was surprised. Bestow magic on him? Something happened, he heard right. His mother explained to him. The henchmen of the other princes, who witnessed their return, reported before them that she mistook someone else for an adult version of her child. And because she waited so long for her son to return, she went crazy. And so, supposedly, she deliberately brought a replacement for her son. That's what those idiots said. The protagonist thought tiredly, an ambush after an ambush. The mother continued, so he must prove his blood relationship. Both her clan and His Majesty's clan have unique magic that is passed down from generation to generation. He will study the Bloodline Magic. MC noted irritably, one thing after another, some kind of continuous parade. He was fine with it. If he could use the unique magic of both demonic clans, it would be very useful to him in the future. Placiphia told him that he would find out the details a little later from Sophia. The woman turned to her devil and asked her, is this okay? The mentor answered her that it is. The protagonist's mother activated a sound barrier and said that the Reiju clan is a great clan that specializes in healing. They are charged with the duty of healing the demons in their kingdom. Therefore, the magic that he, her son, will receive is healing magic. The protagonist was amazed. He could not believe his ears. Healing magic is a miracle that can only be used by those who own light attribute magic, such as mountain elves and priests. It is impossible for someone from a dark clan to use it. Placiphia took out a dagger and pierced her own hand before his eyes. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise, "What is she doing?" She extended her wounded hand to him and said, even if everything happens much earlier than she planned, let him accept this hereditary magic of the Reiju clan. She activated metaphase and pointed her wounded hand at him. The protagonist noted in surprise that her wound was passed on to him. The protagonist looked at his hand and thought in surprise, that's how it was. Healing magic, it's just a powerful curse. It's a disgusting curse that transfers one person's injuries and illnesses to another. Placiphia said with a serious face, let him remember this. The metaphase can only target someone weaker, someone with a strong magical connection, or a controlled being, otherwise it won't work. That's why when the first Demon King Laojias was defeated by the blade of the hero of the pathetic human race, no one from the Reiju clan could intervene. Since His Majesty's magical power was absurdly strong, all the curses bounced back. If only he could use the metaphase, the tragedy could have been avoided. But now they can't do anything about it. MC thought that this was very unpleasant. By transferring all the damage to the opponents in battle, Laojias would become the strongest Demon King in history. That would be the worst case scenario. This is outrageously powerful. Placifia said there was one more thing. If his power is equal to the target's, if the target accepts the metaphase themselves, or if there is a workaround for the curse will not work, so he should take these things into account. Hearing this, Adonixus said that they could use this in an interesting way. The protagonist asked, "Does this mean that the metaphase is now available to him?" Placifia replied that not yet. The injury must first be transferred to her. They are mother and son, it was she who inflicted this wound on him. There's a powerful magical bond between them now. Let him think about this bond between them. After that, she used the metaphase, and in an instant, his wound was transferred to her body. The protagonist said in surprise that the beginning of such magic was the desire of the ancestor of the Reiju clan to transfer her son's wound to her own body. She wanted to soothe the pain caused to her son, and this was the result of motherly love. But what did it all lead to? The curse of transference, born from mother's love, was passed down through generations, perfected, and even expanded its scope of target. In the end, it became a magnificent curse that could be used even in battle. In order to effectively transfer the curse, paradoxically, they do not hesitate to inflict pain on their own child. Placifia replied with a smile that it was still like that. Therefore, only her beloved child could inherit it. She congratulated him. Although he still needs to learn how to master the metaphase, he's already like a novice mage. In honor of his training in Bloodline Magic, she will give him a new maid. Tomorrow evening, she will send her to his room. How to handle her is up to him. Through her, he will understand how to lead his subordinates. MC replied with a calm face that he understood. Placifia happily remarked that this is wonderful. She still has so much to do, so it is time for her to go. In 2 days, he will receive another unique magic. The necessary agreement has already been reached that he will be trained in the Aruji clan. A lot has happened today, so let him have a good rest. He agreed, and after a while lay down on the bed, and then thought that, frankly speaking, after returning from the devil world, he did not have time to rest, and hastily returned to the castle riding a dragon. In addition, he had to persuade Sophia and even learn magic, and, expectedly, he was dead tired. The protagonist, burying his face in the bed, said that he was sleeping. Adonixus exclaimed discontentedly that she still wanted to inspect the castle of the Demon King. He nervously answered, "Let her shut up, he is completely exhausted." After some time, the servant of the second prince said that they received an answer. The last demon prince, who, according to rumors, died in the devil world, returned. There were rumors that Queen Consort Placifia replaced her dead son with someone. But over the past day, he seemed to have learned Bloodline Magic. Also, today, the ritual to obtain the Bloodline Magic of the Arugi clan is being held at the training ground. What does she think about it? Rubifia replied that she didn't care. Whether he was real or an imposter, there was nothing to talk about with the inexperienced, right? After some time, the protagonist woke up from being woken up by Garnia the new maid. He wondered with his eyes closed, what was that? Something heavy and fluffy above him. The guy opened his eyes and, seeing a beast man in front of him, screamed very loudly. Sophia ran into the room excitedly and shouted, "What happened?" After some time, she asked that her name was Garnia. She was a beastman from the White Tiger clan, and she was also the new maid of Lord Gilbagius, right? She wrinkled her nose excitedly and agreed. MC wondered if Placifia had said something like that, in honor of his Bloodline Magic training. He noted that she had scared the living daylights out of him. Sophia said that he had even screamed like a little girl. The maid bowed her head in fear, and exclaimed that she didn't know how useful she would be, but she would definitely serve him with all her might. She was looking forward to serving him. He agreed in confusion and wondered if she was being too serious. Sophia explained with a smile that the White Tiger clan was an ethnic minority who had long sworn allegiance to the Reiju clan. They had supposedly received protection from the clan when they were being persecuted by humans. Garnia happily agreed and added that they wanted to repay them for their kindness, for saving them from being hunted by humans for their fur skins. Sophia said that the White Tiger clan is famous for its unwavering loyalty, which is quite remarkable. The maid agreed and added with a furious look that she would prefer death to betraying her master and would personally tear out her heart. Their loyalty is their pride, for it is the key to the eternal prosperity of their clan. Protagonist called out to Adonixus in surprise. She said that she knew why the Reiju clan took them under their protection. Beastmen have low magic resistance, and they have unwavering loyalty, so they would never betray their master. It is a wonderful gift for studying metaphase. He thought so. She was given to him so that she could take his place if something bad happened. MC said that he was pleased to meet her. She would not treat her badly. Garnia happily agreed and noted that he should wait until the food was cooked. Sophia nervously said that she thought that an assassin sent by his siblings had shown up. The protagonist replied that she was overexciting herself. He thought that, as expected, they were now awkward alone. She called out to him and warned him that they were scheduled to study magic after the meal. He should not forget about it and run away anywhere. He happily agreed and thought that she still remained unchanged. Adenixis noted that she also wanted to listen to the lecture. After some time, they came to the office. Sophia began to explain that magic is divided into many types. The one he learned yesterday is called Bloodline Magic, and it is magic that is passed down in a clan by inheritance. Only famous clans have Bloodline Magic, so not every demon has it. MC thought that this is a good thing. If everyone had access to such idiotic magic, the world would end. He wondered if that meant that everyone born in the Reiju clan could use metaphase. Sophia agreed and pointed out that that was why that clan was one of the most influential in the Demon Kingdom. After all, with metaphase, they would never lose to weaker clans. However, because they failed to resolve the incident with the first Demon Lord, they were in a pretty bad position for a while. Because of that, Lady Placifia's marriage was repeatedly unfairly delayed. The protagonist wondered if that was why she was so obsessed with him. He noted that he understood everything about the Reiju clan. But what about the other bloodline magic? The bloodline magic of His Majesty Orugi's clan. Sophia replied that their magic was introduction. It was a magic that would strengthen the user if they introduced themselves before battle. The protagonist thought that the Demon King had literally revealed his trump card during their battle, and he was the one who did not understand anything. The girl, perplexed, asked what was wrong with his face. He replied that he remembered something funny. The next day, the protagonist came to the training ground with his maid and thought that he was told to come to the military training ground, but where was Placifia? Suddenly, her incredibly loud and ominous laughter was heard. He saw that the big guy Ovalg was standing next to his mother. The ominous laughter belonged to him. The general told Placifia that there was no reason to worry at all. Since he retired, he cannot participate in any battles. So now he has an awful lot of free time. The protagonist, seeing his mother, thought she was found. He came closer to them and apologized to them for their wait. The woman exclaimed, "And here he is, her son." The general turned to look at him and noticed, so that's what he is. He walked up to the protagonist, patted him on the neck, and he asked him if he was a bit big for a 5-year-old. No wonder they asked for his identity check. Ovalg laughed loudly again. The protagonist thought irritably, by the way, it kind of hurt him. Placifia turned to the MC and introduced him to this big guy. She said that this is Count Ovalg. He will teach him the bloodline magic of the Orugi clan. This warrior is a 280-year-old veteran of the army and also the former chieftain of the Orugi clan. The protagonist sarcastically noted, a savage in noble attire. He introduced himself to the general in response and asked him to take care of him. Ovalg noted, and the kid is not a slouch. He does not need to worry about it and can rely on him. The protagonist suggested that he give a demonstration right now. The general activated all his power and proclaimed that he was the former chieftain of the Orugi clan. He was Ovalg. Everything around him trembled from his power. It was such a powerful wave of energy that the protagonist, barely standing on his feet, thought that even a demonic body would have a hard time withstanding something like this. Just like then, the pressure was simply incredible. Suddenly, all the clothes that the big guy was wearing flew off him like a feather. MC was surprised. Wow. The general laughed his loud laugh and said, as expected, his clothes are too fragile. The protagonist thought with admiration, this is it, the true appearance of a savage. So he will learn this kind of magic? The general noted, everything is fine. His Majesty's clothes were always in order. He added that this is the magic called introduction, which only a true warrior can use. As a descendant of the Orugi clan, he should also be a warrior. Ovalg frowned and seriously asked MC, is he innocent? His mother answered for him that her son is pure. He hasn't had time to use his spear yet. The general was surprised. Is that so? Today will be an unforgettable day for him. The protagonist did not understand what this big guy was talking about. The general loudly ordered his subordinates to bring him training material. He turned to the protagonist and admonished him to listen carefully. To fight means to take lives. A warrior must always remain strong. Therefore, first they must perform the minimum ritual. MC heard a metallic ringing and saw in horror how several people were brought to them, bound in chains. The general told him that these were the remnants of the human race that they captured in battles. The main character looked at his mother in amazement. She smiled at him encouragingly. Ovalg continued, If he wants to become a warrior, he must be able to kill. The warriors at the training ground were interested. What's all the fuss about? Ah, someone's innocence will be taken. One of the warriors smiled. Nostalgia visited him. His first was a forest elf. The warriors began to chant for the protagonist to smear them all and destroy them. The archdemon turned to her ally with all seriousness and said that this was a chance to gain power that comes once in a lifetime. Will he kill them, or will he not be able to, like then with Sophia? Looking at the thoughtful protagonist, she noticed, was he planning to keep them alive? Finally, he made a decision. MC called out to Garnia and ordered her to free the captives from their chains. Garnia stopped in surprise. What did he say? The protagonist continued. Also, no matter what happens next, she will not interfere in anything. The maid grabbed her head, an order or protection. She ran to carry out her master's order. The protagonist turned to Adonixus and told her that he did not want to kill them. He wanted them to return alive. Even if he was like this now, he was still a hero. He wanted to protect people and destroy the Dark Clan. He thought angrily that he was the same as them, but, in fact, no. The reason is simple. With his current value and status, he will not be allowed to save a single person here. Even if he risks everything here and now to save them, then he can safely bury his plans to destroy this demon kingdom. All in the name of destroying this kingdom. He ominously said that his name is Gilbegius. He is the son of the demon king Goldogius. He is the prince of demons. And now, he will break the taboo. The warriors on the training grounds were impatiently awaiting the initiation ritual. They were eager to see the prince destroy the pathetic humans. One of the captives said, I wonder if the words of the Dark Clan who brought them here are true? The second captive told him irritably that he was an idiot if he believed it. Of course it was a lie. The one who brought them here told them that the one they would have to fight was the seventh son of the demon king. If they won, they would be able to return to their homeland. The captives looked at him in surprise. The one accompanying them smirked at their reaction, that they finally felt motivated. He ordered them to cheer him up. One captive cursed him foully. Another one remarked that they had no choice but to bet on him. The third one said, even if the chance is slim, it is still a chance. The prisoners stared at the protagonist. The leader noticed that their opponent was about 14 years old, or, in general, 5 years old, so young. Although he was a demon, but nevertheless, he was just a brat. They surpassed him in experience. He told his brothers that coordinated work is everything to them. They must return alive, and also, they will not lose anyone. The prisoners exclaimed that they will carry out the order of their sir, and rush to attack the protagonist. The protagonist, taking a fighting stance as if charmed, ominously repeated all the time that his name is Gilbegius. He is the son of the demon king. He is the prince of demons. He used his magic power, from which an incredible wave arose. The chains of the sufferers fell. The prisoners were confused by how the pressure suddenly increased. Their weakened bodies shook from this pressure. The leader ordered them to cast aside panic. They need to create a defensive formation. One called upon the god of light to protect them. The second shouted for these vile creatures to accept the light of purification. The third asked the higher powers to free them from the curse of the wicked. With one voice, death to the Dark Clan, they rushed to the attack. Not a minute had passed before all the captives were defeated. Only their leader remained alive. He couldn't believe his eyes. This brat was used to it. Despite his young age, he could do such a thing? Even as a demon, wasn't he a child? Were they mocking them? If this boy was allowed to grow up, how many people would die on the battlefield? He had to kill him. The words of the Dark Clan's escort resurfaced in his mind, that if they won, they would be able to return to their homeland. He thought, even if it was a mistake, but right here and now. The leader rushed at the protagonist. The protagonist shouted at him. He would not let his death be in vain. The leader called him to become his food. The protagonist activated the metaphase skill, and a gaping wound appeared in the leader's hand. He screamed at the top of his lungs in pain. The protagonist jumped up to him and stabbed him with the blade, saying death to the Dark Clan. When the last enemy was finished, everyone present and watching this fight began to cheer enthusiastically about the victory of their hero. Gilbegius raised his hand with the blade. Deep in the night, MC jumped up on his bed and exhaled heavily. Looking around, he realized that he was in his room. Turning around, he saw an archdemon next to him. He thought, what the hell is this devil god doing? She asked him, what is it? Doesn't he think that sleeping alone is pretty boring? He rudely told her that it was none of her business, just a waste of magic power. Are they going to talk like this? The devil noticed. It finally got through to him. She continued that this is not real. Only he can feel and see it. It is something akin to an illusion. The protagonist was surprised. What the hell is this? Is she really a succubus? The archdemon replied, well, it works about the same. She asked him if he was angry with her. Let him tell her everything his soul requires. Whatever it is, he, her dear man, can pour it all out on her. She will take it as a blessing. So, let him not drag it out. The protagonist noted, somehow creepy. Hadn't she become too kind? The archdemon was offended. That's what he is. She just doesn't want his heart to break. After a pause, the devil asked him if he knew why taboos are forbidden in the first place. The whole point is in the feeling of guilt. The one who worries, suffers, hesitates. In the end, he becomes helpless, and he crosses the line. This is the essence of taboo. If he is able to do something without hesitation, it is no longer a violation of the taboo. That is why, as long as he strives for power, he will continue to suffer. But the human heart is very fragile. If he is broken, their contract will not bear fruit. The protagonist wanted to tell her his conclusions after her explanation, but she interrupted him and exclaimed, "He is simply trying to extend their contract with his consolations." He muttered back that he guessed. And he thinks, why did she suddenly become so kind? The devil laughed and noted, "Great, then she will enjoy it from the heart." She put her hand on him and said, "Let the soft skin of the maiden give him joy." After a while, he said that he felt relieved when she took on some of his power. The general and Plasifia enthusiastically expressed their admiration for him. The big guy noted that it was amazing. The mother exclaimed that he was a real good guy. She added, when he suddenly freed the prey from the chains, she even became interested in what would happen next. The woman looked at him carefully and asked him if his magical power had increased. He told her that he had imposed a limitation on himself before the ritual. Plasifia was surprised, so it was because he was able to impose a limitation related to interacting with 5 people at the same time, right? Mother noted with admiration, what an incredible efficiency. The protagonist noted, indeed, his current strength surpassed that of an ordinary demon warrior, so the corpses of these people are behind him. The general, meanwhile, informed them that the cutting was done. He handed the protagonist his prey and said that the femur is durable, it can be used for many things. The protagonist asked him, what about the rest? The general was surprised. The rest? Apparently, the Lich uses them as a catalyst for his technique. Suddenly, the big man laughed and exclaimed, he got it. Their hero wants something as a trophy, right? What part does he want? The protagonist told him that he wants the skull. The general told him that it is very good. He will have it processed and delivered to him. Let him wait with anticipation. The archdemon looked at him with concern. The protagonist told her not to worry. His soul will not be broken by this. He would last a long time, and he would have time to entertain her well. The archdemon stroked his head and remarked on what a strong guy he was. Even if his soul was torn apart and he shed tears of blood, he would be her last contractor. The protagonist was surprised, that is, she was not able to break the taboo herself. She told him that for now, you could say so. She had become too powerful. Every day, somewhere in the world, taboos are continually broken. Even if her real body continues to grow in the palace, when she met him, she was already one step away from becoming a concept. And he really was the last man for her. When it was all over, she would leave. Even with the power of a devil god, she cannot erase his suffering. So at least for now, let his soul rest in peace. After some time, Sophia put a bracelet on the protagonist's hand and was surprised to notice that he had proven his lineage without any difficulty. He was officially awarded the title of Esquire. The mentor, continuing to dress up the protagonist, said, finally, the time has come. He has always wanted to meet them, right? The date of the audience with His Majesty and his brothers and sisters has been determined. Let him go to the palace in 7 days. When it was time to arrive at the palace, the archdemon said irritably, she thinks he understands everything perfectly well himself, but no need for any strange ideas. He answered her that he knows it. How many times has she already repeated it? The protagonist followed his mother and thought that the day had finally come when he had the opportunity to enter the palace. His mother asked him if he knew that His Majesty always dined with the heirs once a week, and he was allowed to join them too. She was jubilant. Since the necessary place was in the courtyard, she led him to the throne room. How she was anticipating this moment. The protagonist grinned. Meeting the demon king who killed him is a family dinner of a father and children, along with all the brothers and sisters from different mothers. And in reality, all this was made by the invitation. The mother was very worried and did not hide it. The archdemon warned the protagonist, she does not know how strong the current demon king is. This applies to the other heirs who will be there. If he makes the wrong decision, this time his soul will be completely erased. It will all end with the next demon king ascending the throne in the demon kingdom. Let him not let his emotions get the better of him, otherwise he can say goodbye to his true destiny. The protagonist answered her irritably that he understood everything himself. And so, finally, they arrived at the residence of the demon king himself. The protagonist touched his weapon and thought that it was the thigh bone of a warrior. A processed product obtained from Ovolg. Under the influence of magical power, this thing is able to change its shape. Every step he takes carries the lives of 5 people. He is not going to easily get off the path. Besides, he is not alone. The archdemon noted, it is good that he was prepared. Then everything is fine. Meanwhile, the butler informed the king that Queen Consort Placiphia and the demon prince, Lord Gilbagius, have arrived. The protagonist thought this was a reunion with his sworn enemy. Entering the throne room, the archdemon immediately noticed the magical protection and the dark aura of the king. She thought, so that's it. This is a portal. Guldogius turned to his son and said that they have not seen him for a long time. During this time, he certainly matured. The protagonist greeted his father and agreed that they had indeed not seen each other for a long time. He could barely contain himself, thinking about what a bastard he was, this demon king. His magic power alone was as huge as this portal of darkness. The difference in their strength was obvious. What could be more? How many more taboos would he break before it reached his head? The king noticed that although they had arrived quite early, it was almost time for the meal. He extended his hand to his son and asked him if he was coming with him. The protagonist, curbing his anger, answered him that he was coming. The mother wished him a pleasant meal with his father. The protagonist told her that he was going, everything would be fine. The MC looked around and saw several women. He was distracted by the demon king and did not notice that the rest of his consorts were also there. After leaving the throne room, he turned around once more and exhaled. The mothers of his siblings were waiting. Guldogius asked him what was wrong. Was he uneasy without his mother? The protagonist assured him that everything was fine, nothing wrong. He cursed himself in his mind. He was such an idiot. He needed to focus on the situation. MC followed the demon king and summarized, his current situation was this. He was a son who had not met his father, the demon king, for 5 years. He was faced with the question of how to properly communicate with him. He answered his father. He looked back because he was curious about what would happen when all the mothers were in one room. In his mind, he repeated to himself to act normally. Guldogius chuckled. So that's it, he said. The situation there would become terribly scary. So much so that even the demon king himself would not want to be near such a place. That is why they left their company early. He laughed with a creaky laugh. MC still could not grasp their level of distance. Guldogius turned to him and told him that today he would be meeting his siblings for the first time, right? The protagonist assumed that was the case. Father continued, this is the story he tells all his children on the way to the palace. He was the second son of the previous king. The protagonist seized on this. This was great. This is something he will listen to. The king continued, his father's eldest son was good for nothing. He became proud of being their father's first child and indulged in a vicious lifestyle. It seemed he was convinced that eventually the throne of the demon king would be his. That is why he killed him. The protagonist blinked in surprise. Guldogius continued, his older sister was the same. She was the one who wanted to become the demon king the most, but she spent all her time decorating herself with jewelry. So, he killed her too. Neither of them managed to last more than 2 rounds in a fight. The king looked sternly at his son and ordered him to listen carefully. Only the strongest is worthy of becoming the demon king. This is by no means an attempt to provoke a family quarrel. But if there comes a time when he thinks that his older brother or sister, being a candidate for the post of demon king, behaves inappropriately, let him put his doubts aside. The protagonist smiled and told him that he understood him. Guldogius added that he told him so, just in case. And so, let him behave calmly. Did he understand everything from what he heard? Okay, especially since they have already arrived. Iogius, the first prince, the archduke who possessed the skill ice prison, exclaimed, finally they are here. He was already tired of waiting. Rubifia, the second prince, the archduke, the owner of the pyroclastic flow, looked at the protagonist and noted that he had an impudent face. The third prince, the duke, with the weakness of boundless love, named Diagius, said, it would be great if he were a woman. The fifth prince, the viscount, with the weakness of gluttony, named Spinecia, said, let them be a little more nimble. I'm hungry. The sixth prince, the squire, with the weakness of a sleeping princess, named Topazia, was simply openly sleeping. The protagonist was surprised. There were 5 of them. One was clearly missing. Suddenly, Emergius, the fourth prince, the count, whose weakness was envy, appeared in front of them. He was out of his seat. The protagonist remembered how he called for his mother in horror. Emergius screamed, run, pathetic insects, and let their ruler of their insignificant country know. They are already close and are looking forward to fighting him. Then Emergius laughed a demonic laugh, and the protagonist cursed him. It was all his fault. The protagonist looked at him, barely able to stand on his feet from rage. The archdemon began to worry about this situation. He thought that he hated the demon king. He also hated the demon king's army, but he hated this guy more than anything in the world. It was his fault that everything turned out this way, that he became like this. All the protagonist's siblings, as well as his father, were watching him carefully. The archdemon spoke to him. Truly, did he forget his own words? He must endure. Let him not dare to succumb to his influence. MC pulled himself together and asked for forgiveness from his ally, and then he thanked her for her support. The fourth prince calmed down, greeted him, and noted Let him say something already, at least somehow react. The protagonist smiled at him, apologized to him, and noted that he was simply amazed by the voice that suddenly sounded behind him. Emergius exclaimed maliciously and mockingly. Was he scared or something? He stretched out his hand, ruffled the protagonist's hair, and began to lament how little he was. He was separated from his beloved mother, and he almost soiled his pants from fear. He just needed to be a good boy, and then no one would touch him. Then, the fourth prince turned to everyone else and asked them, "Well, has everyone introduced themselves?" Sitting down in his seat, he introduced himself to the protagonist and added, "Let the seventh prince remember well, he should not underestimate him. He will crush him with his own hands." MC, ignoring him, walked up to the table. He noticed that only his seat had 2 plates. Rebirth said, well, she will tell him this, since it was his first time joining them. Iogius noted that there was a rule at their dining table. The two looked at each other with annoyance and said in unison that the rule was not to talk about politics while eating. The first prince continued, in this regard, before he took his seat, they needed to clarify one thing. He assumed that he had already made inquiries about them beforehand, but, just in case, he would personally introduce himself to him. He was Iogius, the firstborn of the Demon King, the one who would eventually become the Demon King. If he shows him the respect he deserves, he will show him respect in return. He showed the protagonist his place at the table, where the first plate was, and invited him to sit down. Rebirth pulled him back, let him wait. What was he rushing for? She smiled at the protagonist, told him her name, and said that if he had prepared in advance, then he probably already knew which side to sit on. She pointed to the second plate, which was closer to her, and told him that he could sit here. The protagonist chuckled, and this happened quite quickly. What was happening around him was so predictable that it only made him laugh. He had prepared for this in advance. In fact, this round table represents a dispute over the succession to the throne of the Demon King. It is divided into 2 factions with the Demon King in the center. Previously, the number of participants in this faction struggle was equal, but with his appearance, the situation changed somewhat. Oddly enough, he agreed to this in Placidia. No offense, but he should have made his position clear. The protagonist sat down on a chair, crumpled the napkins, and put one plate into another. He knew that everyone present here was his enemy. Everyone was watching his actions carefully. Rebirth said, neutral, but this will not do. The first prince condescendingly noted, after all, he was only 5 years old, they should forgive him. At least for now, for a while. Goldogius finally said that he allowed this seating arrangement. He allowed everyone to start eating. Everyone began to eat silently. After a while, the Demon King, having finished his glass, noted that the roast duck meat was quite exquisite today. He looked at his children and asked them if anyone had anything to say to him. In response, there was a ringing silence. This suited him, and he told everyone that they were free to go. Diagius, coquettishly waving his hand to everyone, said goodbye to everyone, and added that the beautiful ladies were already exhausted from waiting for him. Emergius, shouldering Topasia, said goodbye to everyone, adding that they would see each other next week. The protagonist wanted to stop them. The first prince also said goodbye to everyone. Spinicia whined that she wanted to eat. The protagonist was surprised. Was that all? Iogius's proud boasting of her training, the second prince's maid, who turned out to secretly keep a cat, the annoying provocations of the green-haired idiot, but nevertheless, he still didn't hear anything useful? Really nothing at all? Anything at all. He thought about the weakness of the Demon King, that's right. The protagonist turned to the king. Goldogius asked him what happened. MC asked him if he could find out what he had planned after the meal. The king looked at him in bewilderment and told him that he would have a meeting with the leaders responsible for the affairs of the kingdom. The protagonist asked him if he could watch and learn from him. He wanted to know what his father was doing. Goldogius answered him that he could not allow him to attend the meeting. However, he thought there would be no problem showing him his usual political routine. After thinking for a while, the king finally agreed to his proposal and told the protagonist that there was still time before the meeting he could come to his office. But let him wait a little, he would give the order and he would be escorted. The protagonist joyfully exclaimed that he understood him. Leaving the dining hall, MC rejoiced. The king was impressed by hard work. Leaving the hall, he suddenly ran into Emergius. Is he still here? The fourth prince measured him with an icy look, and also, coldly said, and he knows how to attract his father's attention. Did his mother advise him to do this? They approached each other like 2 rivals, but at that moment, the butler called out to the protagonist and told him that His Majesty was waiting for him in his office. The protagonist looked at Emergius with anger and said that he understood. As he was leaving, he thought that he would let him bark for now, but someday, he would definitely kill him. Along with his parents, Emergius thought in bewilderment, that look of the 7th prince, how he hated that look. After a while, MC, taking hold of the door handle, exhaled and entered the king's office. He apologized to him for waiting. Goldogius told him to sit down. When the protagonist sat down on the chair, the king said that he would now join him and see how the Demon King works. The protagonist thought that this was his plan, but why all the tension? Suddenly, he heard someone's voice asking him to wait and line up. Then the voice began to complain. It was asking them to wait. The king quickly said his name and status and activated the introduction skill. Instantly, the king's subordinates filled the office, shouting in turn that someone had an important report. Someone had a report from the front lines. Someone reported to him that there had been a clash between the night elves and the hobgoblins. There were a lot of them, these reporters, and each of them wanted to attract the Demon King's attention to themselves. After 2 hours, the king tiredly asked him, "So how was it?" "This is what the workdays of the Demon King are like." The protagonist exclaimed that he liked it very much. In his mind, he thought, his suffering is a delight for his eyes. He continued, "It was a useful experience, but it seems that his work is quite difficult." In his mind, he noted the opposite, that this demon looked pleased. The protagonist sympathetically asked his father, "But aren't they dumping too much work on him?" He thought, to be honest, compared to human countries, the administration and the judicial system look immature. The protagonist continued, "Besides, most of those who participate in political affairs belong to other races. Only a few of them are demons." The king chuckled. Did he finally realize how clumsy this country was? He noted that they could not forever adopt other people's experiences. They had to develop. The protagonist agreed that this was true. He had thought about it too. The king continued, "Demons tend to lean towards strength. However, in order to make the demon kingdom even more prosperous, military might alone is not enough. The demon race must also incorporate cultural activities into their lives, which they consider weak. This means he has to deal with petty paperwork and government affairs. Ever since he inherited the position of Demon King from the first king, whom he respects immensely, this kingdom has been riddled with corruption and embellishment. He does not even know how many demon officials he had to replace." Goldogius emotionally slammed his fist on the table and indignantly exclaimed, "Is it even possible to believe in such a thing? If you think about it, the lower races worked harder and more diligently than the demons." The main character, looking at him from under his brows, listened to him attentively. Goldogius said that such thinking is unacceptable for the older generation. However, even those born in the last decades still think the same way. Such a sad situation. Goldogius thoughtfully noted, "This is indeed a serious problem." He thought about it. He would not say that he is smart, but there are many things he can do. He had a good idea, which he will not share with him. He asked them to continue to be savages with muscles instead of brains. Goldogius said that he is strange. If it were Iogas or Rubifia, they would not last an hour and leave out of boredom. For his enthusiasm, he will give him something. He called the protagonist and handed him a notebook, saying that it is a gift from the night elves, but he never used it. It may be useful for his studies. Goldogius took it in his hands and asked in surprise, "Such a nice texture, what is it?" Goldogius said that it happened before he was born. There was a time when the Alliance in cooperation with the White Dragons began to storm the castle of the Demon King. The protagonist thought in surprise, storming the castle of the Demon King. He continued to tell that among the scouts was a holy forest elf. Although the others were killed, the saint was captured alive. This notebook is made from the skin flayed from that high elf. Goldogius lowered his head and angrily clenched his teeth and said, "He will carefully keep this." Goldogius said that if he likes it so much, he can make more. Since she is capable of producing high-quality elven leather, she is currently being held captive in the residence of the Night Elves. The protagonist thought in surprise, is she still alive? Can he find out the details? After some time, Goldogius met Sophia in the corridor, and she happily greeted him. He asked what was the matter. She replied that he had received a message from Madame. Many soldiers were injured by the holy attribute. It was urgent, so she had to go and treat their wounds. She asked him to tell her everything in detail later. The protagonist said thoughtfully, treating injuries from the holy attribute, just think about it. He called out to Sophia and remarked about his brothers and sisters. He meant the history of the demon prince's battles. If there were any records of it, he would like to take a look at it. Would she be able to get it? She asked. Of course there were, but he understood that there were a lot of them. Did he need them all? After Goldogius agreed, she said hopelessly, "Well, if that's the case, it will take some time." She asked him to wait for her in his room. After a while, the protagonist returned to his room and threw the thing on the table, sitting on a chair. He thought about the fact that he was a little worried, but the result was excellent. Anixis said mockingly, "Yes." He was shaking with excitement. The protagonist apologized and asked what she would say. She chuckled and asked, "The Demon King?" He was incredibly strong, and killing him would be quite difficult, but possible. There would be many taboos and suffering, but he would definitely be able to kill him. In the process, he would kill the fourth demon prince. Gilbagius thought decisively that this reunion had certainly made him realize that he had to become much stronger. It was obvious that he needed to accumulate taboos, but he also needed to develop his combat skills and magic. He said that he remembered something. Adenixus asked in surprise, "Did he remember something?" The protagonist said that he would leave it for later. First, he needed to sort this out. He took out the notebook that Golgias had given him from his pocket and noticed that the owner of the skin this notebook was made of was someone he knew. He would never forget that this happened during the defense of the Elven Forest. It was time for a break, and the soldiers took the moment to regain their strength. Alexander looked at the forest and said, "What a nice view, just right." Suddenly, Liliana appeared next to him and greeted him and asked, "He is a hero, isn't he? Will he show her the sacred magic of the human race?" He looked at her and grinned and thought, "A forest elf, but not that." Elves were originally a closed race, and many of them ended their long lives without ever having contact with other races. But the protracted war with the Demon King's army changed this way of life somewhat. Liliana watched Alexander's excitement with interest. As the elves' interaction with the General Alliance became more and more active, inquisitive elven youth secretly left the villages in search of adventure and entertainment, most often at their expense. Alexander sighed irritably and thought how tired he was. He asked, "Just once, okay?" He extended his finger forward and magic began to form around it, after which it grew in size and began to look like a flower. Liliana looked at this in surprise and he asked, "Is she satisfied? And now she should go back." Liliana said that this will not do. After all, she is like his comrade. Liliana stretched out her hand forward and strong magic began to form around her body, with which she spun in a dance and then sharply breathed it into Alexander. He looked in surprise at how everything around him began to bloom and exclaimed in surprise, "His vigor is returning." Liliana noted that it was gratitude for him showing her his magic. In an instant, her magic, rushing through his body, turned into a stream of life, and this is not an exaggeration. Suddenly, a strong wind blew and Liliana's hood fell. Alexander swallowed in surprise and looked at her and thought about sparkling golden hair, sky blue eyes, shining with curiosity. Tan skin, ruddy and shiny. Liliana smiled and introduced herself, saying that she was sent from the Holy Union of the Great Tree, the so-called saint. Would the Lord Hero of the human race reveal his name to her? According to Alexander, that was how he met Liliana. Adenixus noted that the Dark Clan had skinned that saint for a notebook, which later fell into his hands, the hero who was reborn in the Dark Clan. You could say it was a kind of coincidence, but if she was still alive. Suddenly, before she could finish speaking, there was a knock on the door, and Vine said that she had come for him and would take care of him today, after which he apologized for such an unexpected request. Vine bowed and said no way, because it was a great honor for her to be the main hero's guide. Moreover, his words about wanting to see in what an unsightly and shameful state the remnants of the imbecile assault team were deeply impressed her. He had never seen this elf before, so she asked him to enjoy her pitiful appearance. According to the protagonist, the place they were heading to was the northern outskirts of the Demon King's palace. Closed by a stone wall to completely block out the sunlight, it was the residential area of the Night Elves. Gilbagius thought that it looked like Liliana was being held captive in an underground prison. When he had explored the place earlier, he had been turned away at the gate, and looking back, he realized that he had been acting rather carelessly. They approached the tall doors, and Vinay asked him to follow her. Upon entering, the protagonist was surprised by the starry sky and thought that it seemed real. Although now that he looked more closely, what he thought were stars were actually pearls. Vinay said that they would meet an elf named Shidar. He is one of her clan's comrades, and his job is to manage the prison. Gilbagius smiled and said that it inspired confidence. After all, he did the right thing by addressing her. Vinay turned away from him and began to rejoice, while the protagonist's face became serious. She opened the door and led him up the stairs, where they met Shidar. He exclaimed, his formidable posture would not allow for a mistake. "He must be Lord Gilbagius, right?" the protagonist asked. "Is he Shidar?" He was surprised and happily said it was a great honor for him that His Highness knew his name. Shidar said, since there was no need for more introductions, they would immediately get down to business, and he would lead him to the famous prison of the Night Elves. He approached the magically sealed door and said that it was he who asked to open the door. After the seal disappeared, the door opened and they entered. Shidar happily asked, "How is he? Not even an ant could escape from here. Everything is reliably protected here." Gilbagius noticed that the screams made it sound like they were in a torture chamber rather than a prison. Shidar awkwardly apologized to him for soiling his ears. This place also serves as a training center for the young members of the clan, where they learn to kill and torture prey. After a while, Shidar led them to the right cell and said that they had arrived. He turned to the main character and bowed, saying that he was grateful to him from the bottom of his heart for taking the trouble to come all this way. Shidar pointed to the door and noted that his attention was drawn to the room where the holy elf was given a warm welcome, a VIP room. He asked His Highness to come in and enjoy the show. Vine shone the light from the lamp on her, and Shidar said that this was a holy elf named Liliana. Gilbagius looked at how her limbs were attached to chains and her lifeless face. The protagonist reacted in horror to this, and Shidar happily said that he did not expect this day to come, that the result of their research could be demonstrated. He would very much like His Highness to hear about the many difficulties that helped them achieve this. Shidar laughed and madly noted that the moments when this girl squealed like a pig were truly a masterpiece. Shidar was laughing madly at his words when suddenly Gilbagius ordered him to stop, and he apologized to him. The protagonist said that she was just a woman. Why did they use such drastic measures on her? Shidar laughed and thanked him for asking. This is necessary so that she could not use magic and escape, only for these two purposes. He took a knife from the table. The protagonist looked at how blood was dripping from her, and Shidar said, upset, that light magic has a powerful healing property. He ordered Lilian not to disgrace himself in front of His Highness and asked Vine to provide lighting. Unexpectedly, the wounds on Lilian's body quickly healed, and Shidar noted that thanks to this abnormal regeneration ability, she can heal her wounds in the shortest possible time. If they cauterize the wound with iron, like now, her limbs will inevitably grow back. In the past, it happened shortly after she was imprisoned here. She deliberately stopped her regeneration, pretended to be weakened, and waited until the surveillance on her weakened, and then tried to escape. Shidar said that on that day, the precious lives of 5 young elves were lost, all of them burned by light magic. When suddenly he punched Liliana in the face and said, this is how they sealed her movements, but they are not absolutely sure that it is enough. This is where the rope came in handy. They adjusted the length of the rope on her neck so that half of her weight was supported by this rope. Thanks to this, enough pressure is exerted on her carotid artery and airways to keep her in a permanent, semi-conscious state. This state of the saint allows at least sometimes to relax vigilance and surveillance on her because she cannot even control her bladder, let alone magic. They could have kept her magic in check by torturing her 24/7. They usually don't let themselves slack off, but it's rather embarrassing to admit that by the 7th year the torture had become somewhat repetitive. Gilbagius glared at him, and Shidar said in fear that their torture methods were aimed at causing maximum suffering in the shortest possible time. But they didn't expect this dirty pig to live so long after all the suffering. So the inevitable happened. Their creative potential dried up. What if they did this? This could probably be called fate. After all, being a demon, maybe he could suggest a more painful way to harm her? That's the kind of presumptuous idea he had. The protagonist asked, what if they don't come up with anything? Shidar replied that then everything would remain the same and they would just continue their research. Gilbagius asked, research? He replied that her incredible ability to regenerate is due to powerful light magic, but for them, the Dark Clan, it is poisonous. This light is even in the fluids of her body, and if you touch it without any protection, they, the Night Elves, will feel a burning sensation on their skin. But what if they manage to find a use for it? And what if they, too, can use this power without any side effects, regardless of the will of the saint? They will take full control over this elf, and they also conduct research using the brainwashing method. Their actions are dictated not only by entertainment, but neither magic nor prohibited substances have brought results. He understands that light magic is poison for them. Gilbagius smiled and said he was interested. Shidar and Vine looked at him in confusion. The protagonist said his body had recently experienced sudden rapid growth, and lately he had been bothered by the desire awakening in that place, but he had nowhere to throw it out. He asked Shidao if he didn't think this could be called fate. He could hurt her as he wanted, right? Vine exclaimed in displeasure. He couldn't do that. If he let him give her precious first time to that pig, she wouldn't be able to look Madam in the eyes. Gilbagius asked angrily. So what? So she wanted to say he couldn't hug any woman without Mother's permission? Vine suddenly became frightened and fell silent, and the protagonist pushed them towards the exit, ordering them to leave. Shidar said in displeasure, that woman was dangerous. The protagonist asked discontentedly, does he mean that his resistance to magic is weak? He replied that he did not mean that. All living beings are most vulnerable at such times, and if there is no one near him. Gilbagius called out to Endindexis, and she said that her contract devil, and she will take over the observation. Shidao punched the door and shouted that they will wait nearby and asked him to shout if something happens, and not to loosen that rope around her neck. After they left, Endindexis happily said that since all the interference was eliminated, he can begin. The protagonist called out to her and asked, she understands what needs to be done, right? She grinned and agreed, said that in the depths of the residential area, where many trained night elves live, In the very dead end there is a prison, and the only entrance and exit from which is reliably protected by physical and magical locks, from the moment they came here. No, from the beginning, the help he had in mind was to kill her, wasn't it? She wouldn't mind watching the hero break the second taboo and kill the saint. And he was an idiot. He knew full well that Liliana had the ability to heal herself. He had known for a long time. But couldn't he play it up somehow? The only ones who could benefit from the power of healing were those the saint truly, willingly considered her comrades. He pointed the dagger at her chest and thought about how he was giving her relief now. Gilbagia suddenly froze. Was he missing something? Anxiety was building inside him. Something about this was very different from the time he broke the first taboo. Something was wrong here, and it was very important. He couldn't just give her relief. It was his duty, even if he was alone, to stand up for the human race. But he can't use this reason as an excuse and leave another life behind. As Andindixis said, from the very beginning, he thought that the best way out would be to give her death. His past life taught him that there is no fate more terrible and painful than for a forest elf to be captured by the night elves. Knowing this, he madly searched for a way to save her, and this decision is the result of unsuccessful attempts. The protagonist desperately grabbed his face with his hand and thought how insignificant he was. Suddenly, a sound was heard from behind the door, and Vine and Shadar were waiting for them excitedly. The protagonist thought that he did not have time. What could he use to save Lilian's life? The position of the prince of the demon race, the obsidian knife, the femur, the magic of prohibition, or Lilian's miraculous ability? This is not enough, and something else is needed. He asked Andindixis to answer his question. Is the main sacred magic the body or the soul? She looked at him in surprise and told him to try it, and then he would find out. Gilbagius looked at his finger and mentally asked for the sacred light to come to his hands. Suddenly, magic appeared around his hand, and suddenly it began to spark and his skin was burned. He covered his mouth with his hand. It worked after all. So the soul is the main thing, even though the body is damaged, but he is still able to use the magic of sacred attributes. So he can do it. He called out to Andindixis and exclaimed, he came up with a plan. She answered him that he does not need to enlighten her. She guessed without explanation. Apparently, he decided to play a risk. Seems that her contractor does not know such a thing as prudence. Gilbagius awkwardly noted, he knows that changing a decision at the last moment is not a good thing, and he regrets that she made a contract with a hero. But if he does not do everything possible to save a life, then what kind of hero is he? The key to his plan is she and her power of prohibitions. Andindixis said, where will she go? Especially since his idea seems quite interesting to her. She approached Lilian, and the protagonist thought that it is unknown how this will end, success or failure. He swung his dagger and cut the rope that held the saint, when suddenly the protagonist took the spirit from her body. However, the die was cast and the high-stakes game began. Shadar and Vine looked at the door in fear. They ran inside, and he said that they felt a sudden surge of magical power. Are they okay? Liliana glanced at them out of the corner of her eye, and Vine asked in fear, is that a prisoner? Shadar asked the protagonist to retreat immediately. They would protect him even at the cost of their lives. They must move behind their backs. Gilbagius asked him not to make a fuss. It was okay. There was no longer a saint here. He destroyed her personality with magic and made her believe that she was a dog. Shadar and Vine looked in surprise as the protagonist called out to her, when suddenly Liliana looked at him happily, and he praised her. Shadar thought, in the end, she was just a high elf, and her intelligence was worse than that of an insect. Pretending to be a dog, she would try to take advantage of their weakness again. He viciously ordered her to bite her tongue and choke on her own blood. She must kill herself. Liliana clung to the protagonist in fear, and he stroked her head and said, so that's what kind of curse was implanted in her. It no longer affects her, and she ceased to be Liliana, but became a newly born dog. Shadar angrily clenched his teeth and thought, it can't be, or can it? Gilbagius joyfully ordered him to rejoice. Dominion over the saint was achieved, and 7 years of their powerlessness ended. Shadar asked in bewilderment, but what about the most important thing, the power of healing? The protagonist said, of course it is with her. He took a knife and cut his hand. Vine tried to run up to him in fear, but he stopped her. He began to scream mockingly. It hurts so much, a lot of blood flows out. Liliana looked at the wound in surprise, when she suddenly began to lick it, and the wound instantly healed. Shadar was surprised to think that the wound of his highness, who is a servant of darkness, is healing. He really did it. Gilbagius smiled and said, now he is convinced. Shadar smiled awkwardly and asked, what does he plan to do next? He replied that he would take her to the room because they had come early, since he had not yet had time to do what he wanted. And after that, he would spoil her like a pet. Shadar smiled and thought with displeasure about what a vile, depraved boy he was. How long would he behave so selfishly? However, it could be said that they were very lucky that taking control of the saint had unexpectedly been successful. Now they had access to the power of healing, and he certainly would not allow them to be deprived of the holy elf. The protagonist picked her up and headed for the exit, when suddenly Shidar blocked their passage. He smiled and said that it was pleasant that he liked the sight of the saint. He even felt proud of it. However, what a shame. He could not allow him to take her with him. The protagonist asked, and why? He answered, because the saint was given to them by none other than His Majesty the Demon King Goldogius himself. Did he know that 7 years ago, the castle was attacked by the Alliance? He asked him not to worry. His ignorance on this matter is not surprising. After all, it happened before the birth of His Highness. Goldogius smiled and noted that he heard about it, and it seemed like the situation was terrible then. He was sure that the night elves had to work hard and they suffered huge losses. And this woman was given to them by their father as a reward for their efforts. He understands his father's thoughts, but taking into account the value of the holy healing power, it is quite obvious that significant results were expected from their research, and he expected a certain success. The night elves should know more about the forest elves than anyone. They will definitely find a way to use the holy power, and he will trust the night elves. Suddenly, the protagonist's face changed to Goldogius, and he asked, they dared to betray this trust. How can he say such a thing? Shidar fell to his knee in fear and put his hand near his chest. The protagonist approached him and said that he had spent 7 years torturing the saint, and he had achieved results in just a few minutes. Could he tell me which of them his father would consider a suitable host for her? Shidar angrily clenched his teeth and muttered that he would not back down, since he did not understand anything at all. Last week, there had been a major battle at the front and members of his clan had been wounded. 20 of his fellow tribesmen had gone to the underworld. Before that, they had lost 6 and 15 had died before that. To save everyone, their allotted quota for the transfer of the curse was simply not enough. They had all died in pain. He remembered himself, wounded, begging for at least a little, but to change the quota for the transfer of curses. He had already lost count of how many times he had appealed to His Majesty with a plea, and each time he had only been driven away. Night elves were the highest class in the demon kingdom, but they were clearly lower than demons. The forest elves took away their true strength and longevity, their hated enemies. It was like torture that could not be avoided. Indeed, in the conditions of war, when they had no means of healing, they simply became helpless. However, these 7 years of research were thorough and serious. The power of the holy became the hope they had been striving for many years, and His Highness, the Prince of the Reiju family. He would be the one who had the power to freely use the curse of transference, and now he wanted to take away even the power of healing from them. Goldogius clapped his hands happily and thanked him for his speech. Vine looked at him in bewilderment, and he said that it was a truly wonderful speech. He spoke straight from the soul and asked him to finish. The protagonist ordered Shidar to give him his hand, and he extended it, placing the holy liquid on his skin. Suddenly, he pulled his hand back and asked in displeasure why his skin was burned. It healed His Highness? The protagonist noted that the reason he was able to receive the saint's blessing was love. Shidar asked in confusion, love? Goldogius said it bluntly, they would never be able to obtain the saint's healing power, because they probably knew what the essence of the curse of transference was originally. It was magic born from the love of a mother for her child. The same thing happened with the saint. This woman fell in love with him, the one who freed her from the suffering of hell, and he reciprocated her feelings. In order to obtain the power of the saint, love was needed. He said that she was the hope they had been striving for years. It was funny that they had spent 7 years destroying their own hope. Shidar fell to his knees in confusion, and the protagonist noted that even if they continued to hold on to this woman, it would not give them anything, so he took her. However, even though she was useless to them, this did not change the fact that she was still their property. Maybe they could make an exchange? Shidar asked. Exchange for what? Goldogius extended his hand and said, his offer is a quota for the curse of transference. But he will not interfere with the demon kingdom, but will personally take care of the treatment of the wounded night elves, and the saint will heal him, and their cooperation will be constant. But still, the number of elves will need to be regulated. Vine will take on the negotiations regarding the reward for the treatment, and Shidar will take care of who and when. He will be the mediator, and this deal is only between them, so he will interact only with him. What will he say? Does his offer correspond to the value of this woman? Shidar asked in surprise. Will he help them, the night elves, risking his own body? The protagonist smiled and he bowed before him, saying that he entrusts His Highness with the saint. Vine and the others asked in bewilderment, how did this happen? She thought about how Shidar originally wanted to increase the curse transfer quota, and she knew that he was trying to establish a connection with Reiju. That's why when she heard that His Highness liked the skin of a high elf, she thought that it could be used to her advantage. She just thought that it would be useful and shared it with Shidar. She couldn't believe that things turned out this way. She looked at the mad Shidar. He thought that maybe losing the saint would have come back to him as a loss of position. But the current situation was much more advantageous. It all worked out quite well. Vine thought that everything was great for him. She was just a simple servant of His Highness's mother. She sensed a flash of anger, and yet, at some point, His Highness's behavior became unusual. After all, he was not one of those who spoke so arrogantly, and perhaps she just imagined it. After some time, Gilbagius brought Liliana to his room. He approached the table and, taking a jug in his hands, poured a drink into a glass, and then sipped it. Suddenly, he dropped the glass from his hands, and the liquid spilled onto the floor. The protagonist began to laugh madly and asked if it worked. Did she see their faces? He ordered Andindexis to come out quickly. She appeared next to him and noted that there was no need to rush her, and she did not remember allowing herself to be called Andy. She looked at his back and asked if he liked his first outing into the world. The protagonist sat down on the bed and joyfully exclaimed, "Very much." Andindexis thought that the final stage of the plan had arrived and the last bet was left to be played. According to Gilbagius, first of all, it was necessary to convince the holy elf that it was none other than Alexander standing in front of her. If she realized that it was him, then she would certainly agree to help. That was the plan. Everything went well, and the plan succeeded when he demonstrated the magic of the sacred attributes. The magic of the sacred attributes built an inscription. It was he, and he came to save her. But in order to successfully pull her out of this place, it was necessary to solve a number of other problems. The body of the saint had been under the control of the night elves for a long time, and therefore it was unknown what commands were laid out in her. It could be either a confession or an explosion of herself. To prevent this, he forbade Saint Liliana to remember her true identity. At the same time, similar magic was used on Alexander himself in order to prevent information leakage in the event of an unforeseen situation. And Andindexis thought that at that moment, even she did not fully understand what the one who would appear in his body with a sealed consciousness would be like. And it turned out to be the child that was to be born to Placifius, the real seventh demon prince. Gilbagius stroked Lilian's head and happily said, "What heroes are entertainers of funny inventions." He was glad to play in this play, and if the body was left without memory, without the ability to speak, it would lose itself as a person. What would she do then? Andindexis noted that in that case, she would simply remove her spell, and he would probably come up with something else. The main character happily said, "And here comes the end." She smiled and said that the role of His Highness was over, and he must return this body to Alexander. If he resists, then she will forcibly remove the spell. However, then there may be consequences. She looked at him with displeasure, and he said that he already understood and was already disappearing. Andindexis noticed that he was surprisingly calm. Gilbagius asked, "So that was the plan, wasn't it?" Besides, even before he was born, this body was conquered by the hero. Such is the law of their world. The strongest will survive. She was surprised and noticed, right, the words of a true demon. The protagonist asked, "How do you think the real him will be satisfied with the result?" She agreed. He tried hard, and, approaching him, she touched his head with her hand. After which she said goodbye to him and asked him to hold on and try to do everything right. After a while, Gilbagius turned his head from side to side and asked, "What did he do? Why should he risk his life and heal these elves?" And Andindexis grinned and said, "He just returned, and he was already making such a noise. It seems that his memory is more or less all right," and she asked him to turn his gaze to Lilian. The protagonist looked at her and said, "Exactly." She asked if he allowed her to lift the ban on the saint. Gilbagius wrapped her in a blanket and she touched her with her hand. The protagonist thought that with this, their plan would be completed and the salvation of the saint would be considered successful. There was only one problem left. The protagonist bowed before her and began to regretfully ask her forgiveness for how everything turned out. And from now on, she would have to play the role of his pet in public. It would be unbearable, he understood, but he promised her that he would definitely help her escape from the palace of the Demon King, and until that moment, he begged her. Suddenly, he looked at how Liliana was trying to play with a glass that was lying on the floor. He called out to her, when suddenly she blew on it, and the glass rolled to the side. Gilbagius called out to Andindexis, and she exclaimed in fear that she honestly was not guilty, and that it was right to cast the ban magic first. He asked with displeasure, then, why didn't her consciousness return? Andindexis said that she didn't want to return. After all, she didn't want to remember, right? Perhaps on a subconscious level, she was trying to protect her consciousness. Liliana thought that she couldn't bear the weight of the memories that had returned. The protagonist called out to her and said that if it would make it easier for her, then so be it, he would wait, and Liliana smiled happily. Meanwhile, Vine was kneeling in front of Placidia, and she asked, "Gilbagius made the holy elf his pet?" She couldn't understand it. She ordered her to explain everything to her again from the beginning. After a while, Garnia said that she had finished everything, and Liliana's clothes appeared. Garnia called out to the protagonist and asked him to just look. She seemed to like it. She hadn't slept all night to sew it, but it was worth it. Gilbagius smiled and thanked her, and then thought, did she sew this with her paws? What amazing dexterity. Several days had passed since Lilian was saved, but her arms and legs were still not restored. The metal had fused with her body, and its removal was only possible through amputation. However, as soon as she saw the blade, she was overcome with horror. Technically, she was now a pet, but she was a light one, so for the sake of safety, it was better to just watch for now. The protagonist put the document on the table and said that he was leaving. Garnia asked if he was training again. He agreed and asked her to look after Lilian. She happily agreed and said that he could rely on her. After he left, Garnia said that she was worried about him. Their master, after a meal shared with the king and his brothers and sisters, visits the training grounds every day, and in his free time he studies the military exploits of the king's children. She hopes that he will not overexert himself. Suddenly, Liliana made a displeased sound, and Garnia happily asked, is she mimicking her? Meanwhile, Gilbagius skillfully dealt with opponents on the training ground. He asked displeasedly, why are they silent? Is it really that no one else dares to challenge him? The warriors began to whisper in confusion. The Lord is just brutal. He has incredible power. The man said that it is his turn now. Suddenly, Placiphia appeared behind him, and he asked displeasedly, where are they going? Gilbagius asked, no one has dared to go against him. Placiphia came to the middle of the site and asked, is the next fight with her, or does he think she is beyond his strength? The main character looked at her in surprise and asked, Mom, he thought about how the last time he saw her use a spear was when she was introducing Andendixis to her, but she hadn't been in full combat readiness. Now he had a chance to correct that oversight. He asked her to fight him with satisfaction and rushed to attack her. Gilbagius swung his sword when suddenly Placiphia dodged the attack and their weapons crossed and the ground beneath her feet began to crumble. She began to quickly spin the spear, not giving the protagonist time to catch his breath, and then threw him aside. Gilbagius exhaled heavily and thought, seriously, she's just really strong. If only he had a sword in his hands, then he'd have at least had a chance. Placiphia called out to him and said that sometimes she was far from understanding what kind of thoughts were lurking in his beautiful head. The protagonist asked what she was getting at. Placiphia answered with displeasure that she had just been told something interesting. Can he even imagine the feelings of a mother who was told that her dear son had brought a naked high elf as a pet? Gilbagius noted that there were reasons for doing so. Placiphia attacked him and asked what he was planning. She attacked him over and over again, and the protagonist fearfully asked to listen to him. This was not some kind of whim. He had completely different goals. She angrily ordered him to shut up, since when did he start acting like this? He was only 5 years old. When suddenly Gilbagius grabbed the wound that appeared on his side and Placiphia asked, well, where is his naked elf? Is she not with him? The protagonist gritted his teeth and said through the pain that he did not bring her here. She looked at the crowd of people and said, at least it was not in vain that they gathered here. The protagonist looked at her in surprise as she used the transfer curse, and his body and the man were enveloped in dark magic, after which he fell lifelessly to the ground. Placiphia asked, seriously, it was only good for one use? As expected, old people are useless. She turned her head when suddenly she saw a dagger in front of her face, but deftly dodged and blocked the attack. Gilbagius firmly said that she misunderstood something. His beliefs were still unchanged. He blocked the attack with his foot and then used the transfer curse. The protagonist thought so that his retribution could be fulfilled in the name of getting rid of unfair torment and senseless deaths, to fulfill his goal of saving the human race as much as possible. Placiphia was about to tell him when suddenly she saw Gilbagius out of the corner of her eye and said, he really desires power, even surpassing the power of the Demon King. That was enough for today. If he wanted more, he could turn to her, and she would be happy to help. After a while, Placiphia asked to hear his version, so he should tell her what happened. So this whole thing was just a way to enlist the support of the night elves who were engaged in reconnaissance and sabotage. It was a wise move to leave the condition regarding payment open for discussion. It gave flexibility. She thought that even a hint of distrust towards her own son was already a reason for shame. But if suddenly his desires were so strong, she could pick someone from the clan to satisfy this need. Gilbagius said discontentedly that he would do without. The holy elf really liked him, but his words about his love rather served as an excuse for his actions. In any case, he does not feel such desires yet. Placiphia exclaimed awkwardly, that's right, so she couldn't even imagine that it would awaken in him so quickly. Placiphia called out to him and noted that she noticed that he was looking for strength not only in martial arts. He probably realized a lot after the meal with his brothers and sisters. So she had a proposal for him. She'd been thinking about it for a long time. Would he mind participating in a real fight? Gilbagius asked in surprise. His first time on the battlefield, she asked him to perceive this as an opportunity to gain real experience. Of course, he is now able to show himself on the front lines, but gaining experience is important. The protagonist thought that he had become stronger than his past self, so he could handle it on the front lines. Of course, if you close your eyes to the moral suffering that he will generously plunge into while fighting people. Gilbagius agreed, and Placifia noted that he could clarify the location and purpose with Sophia. She had already prepared all the necessary documents. Meanwhile, the goblin assistant stood in front of Sophia and she asked what they had here. This is a place for the protagonist's training, right? She handed him the document and asked him to pass this on. The goblin assistant left the office and walked down the corridor, when suddenly he ran into another goblin assistant. He pointed at the document with displeasure and said that he should pass these papers to Emergius. And Sophia's goblin assistant said that he should give these papers to the protagonist, after which they picked it up from the floor and went their separate ways.